Chapter 380. Guo Mei went to investigate Lin Feng. This was very easy. There were still many people from the Heaven Do Empire in the city. He easily found out about the Shrek Academy from these people. While Guo Mei was investigating, Bibi Dong was also making the final arrangements. Tomorrow was the most important time. She had to plan carefully and how to act. At the same time, Bibi Dong felt that there was something wrong with Qian Renxue. It wasn't a recent feeling. It had been a while. Although Ing Luan's feedback was normal, some of their actions in the past 6 months made Bibi Dong a little suspicious. He felt that there was an ulterior motive, but it didn't seem like betrayal. Therefore, Bibi Dong was a little suspicious. However, this was an important time. Although there was a problem with Qian Renxue, it wasn't very big. She could put aside for now. The most important thing now was to deal with these teams. Bibi Dong felt that the Martial Soul Hall's team might not be able to win the championship. They might not even be able to get second place. This would be very embarrassing. Furthermore, how should he deal with these two teams in the future? Tang Sen had to be killed. As for the other people in the Shrek Academy, he didn't have to care about them. Although they were geniuses, they weren't at the level where the Martial Soul Hall had to kill them. Furthermore, a few of them had powerful backgrounds. It wasn't appropriate for the Martial Soul Hall to fall out with these people. As for the Avengers, he had to control them first. He didn't want to offend them. He had to serve them well and force Dr. Strange out. When the time came, he would make a decision based on the situation. There shouldn't be any accidents. Bibi Dong had specially hired a consecrated to keep an eye on him. In tomorrow's plan, the Martial Soul Hall would send 7 elders at once. When the time came, there would be 9 titled Douluo. There wouldn't be any accidents. Just as Bibi Dong was thinking about this, Guo Mei quietly appeared. Reporting to the Pope, we have investigated Lin Feng's information. Guo Mei said respectfully. Speak. Bibi Dong nodded slightly. Lin Feng is also a student of the Shrek Academy. He's about the same age as Shrek's 7 monsters, and he's deeply respected by them. Even Grandmaster seems to think highly of him. Aside from that, we also discovered that Thanos seems to be related to Lin Feng. Furthermore, Douluo Bo only became a teacher at the Shrek Academy not long after Lin Feng and the others arrived in Heaven Do City. Furthermore, it's very likely that Douluo Bo came to Martial Spirit City because of Lin Feng. What Guo Mei said, some of it was heard from others, and some of it was his own guess. When Bibi Dong heard this, he frowned slightly. Then, he waved his hand and said, "You can leave. I need some time alone." Yes. Guo Mei didn't drag on. He cupped his hands and retreated. At this time in the room, Bibi Dong felt a headache coming. This Lin Feng is actually related to Tang San, and he's his older brother. Lin Feng is also related to Thanos. She suspected that Thanos is related to Dr. Strange. With all these connections, and Tang Hao, who is a titled law, could all these people be from the Clear Sky sect? Bibi Dong couldn't be blamed for making such a guess. After all, there weren't many hidden forces on the continent that were so powerful. The Clear Sky sect should be one of them. In addition, the people from the Avengers were too talented. They didn't seem to have much respect for the Martial Spirit Hall, especially that Lin Feng. He even looked at her, the Pope, with a hint of scrutiny. Ordinary forces couldn't nurture someone like him. However, this Lin Feng shouldn't be Tang Hao's son. Tang Hao couldn't have nurtured someone like Lin Feng. Bibi Dong guessed that this Lin Feng might be related to Tang Chun. Tang Chun was the legendary sect master of the Clear Sky sect. He was most likely dead, but Bibi Dong guessed that he might still be alive, and Lin Feng should be related to him. This Thanos and Dr. Strange might have been nurtured by him. If her guess was correct, this Tang San and Lin Feng had to be killed, and the 7 people from the Avengers. To be safe, it was best to kill them too. If Tang Chun really nurtured these strong people, he might make a move tomorrow, but Bibi Dong wasn't too worried. If nothing unexpected happened, Tang Chun's strength might have reached the peak of rank 99. If a strong person of this level appeared, the Thousand Dao School would deal with him. And Bibi Dong guessed that even if it was really Tang Chun, he wouldn't make a move. After all, the titled law above rank 96 was generally pursuing the realm of gods. They generally didn't care about some things in the world of soul masters. The worship of the martial spirit hall was like this, and so was the Thousand Tao School. But that Thanos felt like an anomaly. He was so strong, and his soul power was at least rank 97. Logically speaking, such a strong person should be concentrating on cultivation, but he often liked to fight. And this Doctor Strange was even more ferocious. He threatened to challenge the entire continent. These two people felt very strange. They were too aggressive. But this wasn't the main point. The main point was that when they wanted to kill Tang San tomorrow, they might encounter a lot of resistance. For a moment, BB Dong felt that the arrangements tomorrow were not enough. They had to send another group of Soul Masters. Not only the title Douluo, but the Soul Masters also had to be arranged around the area. Those Soul Masters still in the Martial Spirit City had to be chased out. This way, their actions wouldn't be exposed. In fact, BB Dong had thought of canceling this plan. After all, there was something that made her a little afraid. Douluo's strength had increased. He suddenly reached rank 95 from rank 91. This speed was simply terrifying. The main thing was that BB Dong still didn't know what was going on. Even an immortal medicine shouldn't be able to achieve such an effect. Because of the unknown, she was actually very worried about this. If it weren't for Tang Hao, BB Dong would definitely try her best to rope in this group of people. Unfortunately, the Martial Spirit Hall and Tang San had become mortal enemies. This Tang San had to be killed. The morning passed very quickly. At noon, everyone ate a good meal and then recuperated. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, everyone gathered in the plaza again. The semi-finals of the Continental Elite Academy Tournament are about to begin. Both teams, please get ready. The tournament will officially begin in 15 minutes. The red-robed bishop's referee shouted loudly. Hearing this, the team members of both teams cheered each other on. Tang San and the others were very relaxed. They had also recovered to their peak condition. At this moment, they were all smiling and discussing how to challenge the Avengers tomorrow. Of course, in the last few minutes, they also seriously analyzed the possible responses of the 7 members of the Martial Spirit Hall and how to quickly end the battle when the time came. They didn't think that the Martial Spirit Hall's team was very strong, but even a lion would use all its strength to catch a rabbit. They were still prepared. On the other hand, Evil Moon couldn't compete because of Sun Chuantao's serious injury. He could only temporarily substitute a rank 43 Soul Ancestor. This guy was also a substitute. Because he wasn't an official member, his cooperation was a little weaker, but he was still very strong. At this moment, Evelmun's face was slightly gloomy as he saw Shrek's 7 monsters laughing and chatting. However, he still turned around and smiled at his team members. This match is very important to us. His Holiness the Pope and the Elders are watching. We don't just need to win one match. We need to win 2 matches in a row. Moreover, we need to win beautifully and cleanly, not giving them the slightest chance. The final championship will be ours. We are. As he spoke, Evil Moon stretched out his hand. Everyone stepped forward and shouted at the same time, "Champions!" Not far away, Xiao Wu heard the shouts and pursed her lips. They're shouting loudly. We have to shout louder too. Yes. Suppress their momentum, Ma Hongjun said excitedly. Everyone nodded and put their hands together. Then they shouted in a louder voice than Evelmun's team. Shrek Academy will win. After all, they were just a group of young people, and they were very competitive. At this moment, everyone looked over in a provocative manner, as if they were saying that they were the strongest. Lin Feng and the Grandmaster looked at this scene and smiled like old fathers. On the other hand, Evelmun's team looked gloomy, but they didn't say anything. Just like this, 15 minutes passed quickly. Shrek's 7 monsters and Evelmun's team walked up and came to the center of the square. Everyone in the audience also looked over. This was the semi-finals, and no one didn't take it seriously. The match is about to begin. Both teams, you can release your martial souls. The Cardinal stood in the middle and shouted. Both sides didn't hesitate and released their martial souls one after another. However, in terms of soul rings, Evelmun's team on the right all released their soul rings. The 3 Soul Kings had 2 yellow, 2 purple, and 1 black rings, and the other 4 soul ancestors also had 2 yellow and 2 purple rings. All 7 of them had perfect soul rings and were very powerful. On the left, Dai Mubai had 2 yellow and 2 purple rings, and most of the others also had 2 yellow and 2 purple rings. However, Xiao Wu's 4th black 10,000-year soul ring made Evilmoon's and the others' hearts sink. They already knew this information. Not only Xiao Wu, but also Tang San, both had 10,000-year soul rings. But now, Tang San only summoned his martial soul and didn't reveal his soul ring. Everyone didn't see his 10,000-year soul ring, but his 4th soul ring is actually 10,000 year. Not everyone in the arena knew about this news. After seeing Xiao Wu's soul ring, there were quite a few people who exclaimed in surprise. The referee was also taken aback, but soon he shouted, "Let the match begin." At the same time as the order was given, the cardinal quickly retreated and left the ring. In the square, the 2 sides instantly fought. At this time, it was all about strength, and there was no need to hide anything. Evil Moon and Tang San actually had the same idea. They had to go all out from the beginning. Evil Moon and Hulaina instantly approached each other and used their martial soul fusion skill. This martial soul fusion skill was one of their trump cards. They had never used it before, but now they wanted to catch their opponents off guard. The 2 were like Ultraman, directly colliding with each other and emitting a red light. The red light was not a light source, but a light curtain. After the light curtain appeared, it quickly spread. When Evil Moon and Hulaina collided, the light curtain enveloped them. In the next second, the red light curtain also burst out like a big bowl, covering most of the square. At the same time, the amplification soul skill of the auxiliary-type teammates also blessed the 2. This was Evil Moon and Hulaina's martial soul fusion skill, called Bewitching Charm. When this soul skill was released, the 2 would merge into one and temporarily become one person. A person with long hair fluttering in the wind, and it was difficult to distinguish the gender. It was very bewitching. The effect was also very powerful. Within the range of this red light curtain, everyone's senses would become sluggish, and the strength of their soul power would weaken. The suppression effect was almost halved, which was very powerful. The most important thing was that within this range, except for Evil Moon and Hulaina, everyone else could not see anything. This light curtain covered half of the square in an instant, including everyone from the Shrek Academy. Although their eyes were covered, they did not panic at all. When Evil Moon and Hulaina released their martial soul fusion skill, the 7 of them also moved. Dai Mubai directly activated his white tiger Shinrock shield and blocked in front. Then Ma Hongjun leaned forward and also released his martial soul fusion skill. This time, it was not Dai Mubai who took the lead, but Ma Hongjun. His whole body was covered in flames, and the white tiger phantom appeared, and a huge aura suppressed the whole square. Under the raging flames, a small vacuum area was burned out of the pink light curtain, and Dai Mubai could see about 5 meters around him. Ning Rongrong first blessed everyone with an amplification skill, and at the same time, she held Zhu Zhuqing's hand and released her martial soul fusion skill. 9-colored light poured into Zhu Zhuqing's body, supporting him like a fairy. At the same time, Zhu Zhuqing's soul bone skill, Secluded Night Eye, was activated, and his originally obscured vision was instantly restored. In the center of everyone, Tang Sin did not move. He only opened his purple demon eyes to observe the whole square, and his blue-silver grass spread out. Xiao Wu came to Dai Mubai's side, ready to attack at any time. Oscar, who was at the back, quickly made sausages. Although he could not see, he did not panic at all when he was beside Tang San. At this moment, the combination of Evil Moon and Hulaina quickly launched an attack, and the Moonblade in their hands attacked everyone. In their minds, Shrek's 7 monsters would definitely panic after the Bewitching Charm Soul skill was activated, and if they suddenly attacked at this time, even if they were not completely wiped out, it would not be a problem to seriously injure 2 or 3 people. Moreover, their soul skill was extremely powerful. Unless one could fly, it would be very difficult to escape. Their teammates didn't even need to go, and the two of them could rely on this martial soul fusion skill to control the whole square. Even if the soul skill disappeared because of insufficient soul power, it would be fine. Shrek's 7 monsters would probably only have 2 or 3 people left. Then it would be impossible to make a comeback, and they still had 5 teammates. Just like that, the two of them rushed in excitedly with this thought in mind. They had even predicted that Dai Mubai would be killed in one move. Then, whoosh, 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 Zhu Zhuqing suddenly appeared behind the two of them, and then quickly attacked with 3 claws. How is this possible? The two of them were shocked. They didn't even have time to resist before they were sent flying by the 3 claws. In fact, at this time, Zhu Zhuqing could still pursue and kill them in one move. Although her soul power and senses were suppressed, she was too strong after using her martial soul fusion skill. Even if she was suppressed, she still had the strength of a soul emperor. Coupled with the restraint of the secluded night eye, Evil Moon and Hulaina couldn't resist her attack at all. She didn't pursue it this time, just to give her teammates a chance to perform. Zhu Zhuqing forced the two of them forward. Dai Mubai took this opportunity to turn the White Tiger Shadow Strike into a huge shadow fist and directly smash them to the ground. Ma Hongjun descended from the sky, and the White Tiger Shadow roared and punched their stomachs. Bang! With a muffled sound, Evil Moon and Hulaina were directly knocked out of their martial soul fusion state. The surrounding red light curtain also dissipated in an instant, and the situation in the field was displayed in front of everyone. What happened? Didn't the captain go in and easily defeat the opponent? Why are they lying on the ground as soon as they go in? At this time, the other 5 members of the Martial Soul Palace had the same thought. They were all dumbfounded. Not only them, but Evil Moon and Hulaina in the field were also dumbfounded. They didn't understand the situation at all. How did they suddenly get seriously injured? Ma Hongjun didn't hold back in that punch. If the two of them weren't in a martial soul fusion state, they might have died directly if they took it alone. Even if they caught it now, the two of them were seriously injured and didn't dare to move. And this scene made the whole audience silent. Originally, many people in the Martial Soul Palace thought that the Shrek Academy was going to lose. When the red light curtain disappeared, what was shown should be the scene of the Martial Soul Palace team's victory, and it was a complete victory. However, the result made everyone's jaws drop. The light curtain didn't even last for 5 seconds before it disappeared in an instant, and Evil Moon and Hulaina were also seriously injured. Good job, Flanders shouted with a smile on his face. Master, Lu Erlong and the others next to him also laughed very happily. On the VIP platform, Bibi Dong's face was a little gloomy. She could already see that the Martial Soul Palace team was going to lose. They didn't even make it to the final, and they were hailed as the team of the Golden Generation. It was really embarrassing. And just when everyone had different expressions on their faces, in the field, taking advantage of the Martial Soul Palace team's shock, Xiao Wu directly teleported to the opponent's back row. Zhu Zhuqing also followed. The two of them easily killed the remaining members of the Martial Soul Palace team, as if they were chopping melons and vegetables. A few seconds later, only the Shrek's 7 monsters were still standing. The red-robed bishop, who had just become the referee, had a red and white face at this time. He couldn't believe the scene in front of him. The whole game, from the beginning to the end, added up to less than 15 seconds. This kind of blitzkrieg battle that ended so quickly usually happened in a situation where the disparity in strength between the two teams was very large, and the time would also be about half a minute. A battle like this that ended in 15 seconds had never appeared in the finals. At most, it would appear in the first round of the qualifiers. But now, it actually appeared in the top 3 of the finals. This was really unbelievable. The winner of the semi-finals of the Continental Elite Academy Tournament is the Shrek Academy. They are qualified to compete with the Oakland Academy for the championship tomorrow. The red-robed bishop's voice was dry, and he wasn't in a good mood. However, Tang San's group of 7 were all very happy. Just as they had imagined, they had easily obtained victory, and Tang San had not revealed anything. In fact, with Evil Moon's team strength, if they had been more steady, all of them, and were very careful, they wouldn't have lost so quickly. The main reason was that Evil Moon and Hulaina were too arrogant when they used their martial soul fusion skill. They didn't think that Shrek's 7 monsters would be able to discover their position. Evil Moon and Hulaina were like 2 idiots, directly rushing into the crowd. This was no different from the MC flashing into the bushes without vision and then sending his head to the ground. It could be said that Evil Moon's carelessness was the main reason why the Martial Soul Hall Academy lost this time. Of course, they had already lost, so it was useless to talk about this now. At this time, Tang San's team returned with smiles on their faces. The 7 people from the Martial Soul Hall Academy were all seriously injured, and their faces were full of disbelief. Today's competition was over. Douluo, Ning Fengji, and the others ran over to congratulate the Shrek Academy. Flinder and the others welcomed them with smiles on their faces, a burst of joy. On the other hand, on Bibi Dong's side, although her face was calm, her heart was very unhappy. In her opinion, without the Martial Soul Hall Academy participating in the finals, it could be said that it was already over. Bibi Dong even thought that the competition could end right away. She could assassinate Tang San and Lin Feng that night. But on second thought, that wouldn't work. If they did that, the 2 empires would unite and attack the Martial Soul Hall Academy. The Martial Soul Hall Academy was strong, but it was still not strong enough to face the 2 empires at the same time. Douluo was strong, but if the 2 empires sent their armies to attack them, the Martial Soul Hall Academy would be swarmed to death. Therefore, it was not the time to turn hostile. Even though the Martial Soul Hall Academy had lost, they still had a fight in the finals the next day. The 3 soul bones had to be given away. The finals would begin the next day. The people in the square gradually dispersed, and Bibi Dong returned to the Pontiff's palace. Evil Moon and the others looked gloomy. After they recovered a bit, they went to Bibi Dong to accept their punishment. Evil Moon was the main reason why they lost the competition so quickly. Bibi Dong was still angry. However, Hulaina stood up and took most of the responsibility for her brother. Bibi Dong valued Hulaina very much. She was her disciple, and she even raised her like a daughter. Of course, she didn't punish them in the end. Bibi Dong also knew that the Golden Generation was still a little weaker than Shrek's 7 monsters. No matter how careful they were at that time, they couldn't avoid losing in the end. Bibi Dong thought that Evil Moon and the others could win because Tang San and the others hid their strength too well. Bibi Dong thought that they wouldn't be too strong. Now that he had used 2 martial soul fusion skills, it was really too surprising. Chapter 381. The stronger Tang San and the others were, the more Bibi Dong feared them. He had to kill them tomorrow. As for her 3 disciples, Evil Moon and Yin were slightly weaker than Hulaina. Now that they had lost, it was up to them to see if they could pass the psychological test. If they could pass, there was still hope for them to break through and become a titled Douluo in the future. As for Hulaina, Bibi Dong was grooming her to be the next pope. Although she had lost, it didn't mean much. Bibi Dong comforted her with a few words, then let her reflect on her shortcomings in this match. Bibi Dong decided to let Hulaina train for a period of time, and then send her to the Slaughter City to improve herself. Inside the hotel, it gave people a feeling of emptiness at this moment. The teams from the other academies had all left, leaving only the group from Shrek Academy. Walking the corridor, there was basically no one to bump into. This kind of atmosphere was somewhat cold and cheerless, and Tang San had a feeling that a storm was coming. But tonight, everyone was still very happy. In a large private room, the Shrek Academy team gathered together. Ning Fengji, Dusty Heart, and Douluo had all come over. Tomorrow was the day of the finals. If he won the competition, he would be able to obtain 3 soul bones and become the champion of the tournament. Today, everyone was cheering them on, and Ning Fengji and the others expressed high praise for them. Flanders sighed. Children, this is the last battle before you graduate. After tomorrow's finals, you will graduate. Frankly speaking, it is my honor that Shrek Academy has accepted a group of geniuses like you. You are my pride. The Avengers are very strong, and of course, you're also very strong. But what I want to say is that I don't want to see any of you get into trouble in this last match. In my opinion, the championship isn't important. What's important is yourselves. I hope to see you return safely. The title of champion of the Continental Elite Academy Tournament. Was this title important? Of course it was important. The title of champion of the entire continent, in his previous life, was the title of #1 in the world. Lin Feng thought back to the effects of obtaining first place in the LOL World Championship in his previous life. That was an achievement that could directly proclaim a team as a god. Especially in this kind of competition, everyone would only remember the first place. No one would care about who the second place was. The World Championship was held once a year. As long as one won the championship, the reputation they would bring would be huge. The Soul Master Tournament in Douluo's world was held once every 5 years. If Shrek Academy could become the champion, all the Soul Master Academies on the continent would remember their name for the next 5 years. As the principal of Shrek Academy, this was the highest honor for Flanders. At this moment, he regarded the lives of the students as more important than this honor. It could be said that he was a rare good principal. When everyone heard this, they all said, "President, don't worry. We'll definitely win this championship. When the time comes, we'll definitely make Shrek Academy's name resound throughout the continent." Flanders sighed. They're all good kids, but safety is the most important thing. Ma Hongjun suddenly said, "Teacher, why are your eyes red? The lights in this hotel are a little dazzling." Flanders's old face turned red. He turned his head and whispered. Zhao Wuji laughed. "Old Ghost Fu, you also have a day like this. Don't say such depressing words. From what I see, Xiao San and the others are so strong and full of momentum. That Avengers Alliance doesn't even have a Soul King. We'll definitely win. Xiao San and the others have a trump card. Once the 7-man combination skill is used, even I can't block it. Even if they can't display their full strength in a real battle, that group of soul ancestors won't be able to resist." Zhao Wuji had a deep understanding of Tang San's 7-man combination skill. It was an attack that he found difficult to block, even with his martial soul true body. It was almost comparable to Soul Douluo's attack. The master also laughed. "That's right. Xiao San and the others' combination skill is too strong. In my opinion, it's the strongest soul skill that's closest to a 7-man martial soul fusion skill. It's impossible for them to lose. A 3-in-1 martial soul fusion skill was already very powerful. 2 soul sages and 1 soul grandmaster could fight against the titled Douluo. A 7-man martial soul fusion skill was a legendary divine skill. It combined the martial souls of all 7 people and then unleashed it. The increase in his strength was simply unimaginable. Even if only 7 soul ancestors used it, Douluo wouldn't dare to say that he could win unless there were a few titled soul ancestors. This was the power of a divine skill. Although Tang San and the others' combination skill was far from a 3-in-1 martial soul fusion skill, it was still extremely powerful. The increase in strength was not inferior to a 3-in-1 martial soul fusion skill. Under such circumstances, the master was not worried that they would lose. Xiao San and the others can use a soul skill that's close to a 7-man martial soul fusion skill? Ning Fengji's eyes were full of surprise. This was something they didn't know. Dusty Heart, who was at the side, also had a trace of surprise in his eyes. The 7-man martial soul fusion skill was recognized as the #1 divine skill by all the soul masters on the continent. How talented were these 7 people to be able to use a skill that was close to this? Yes, it could be considered a trump card. The master nodded. This thing was still relatively confidential, so the master didn't say much. Ning Fengji also knew that his question was rather secretive, so he didn't ask much and quickly changed the topic. "Then I wish the Shrek Academy to win the championship in advance." Ning Fengji chuckled. For a moment, everyone was happy and harmonious. On the other hand, although Lin Feng was happy on the surface, he was somewhat depressed in his heart. Tang Xin could only vaguely feel that this was the calm before the storm, but Lin Feng had already seen it. His avatar in the sky pretended to be a big bird and flew around. Over the day, he saw too many actions of the martial soul hall. First, they drove away the soul masters of the other forces. Then, they let the soul sages and soul Douluo lurk in the city and seal the major city gates. There were also some actions by the elders of the titled Douluo. If it was the same as in the original work, it would be fine if only the titled Douluo took action. Lin Feng knew that Tang Hao was nearby. When the time came, he could still retreat after a big battle. He was afraid of the soul Douluo and soul sages. There were too many of them. There were more than 100 soul sages and more than 40 soul Douluo. Back then, Lin Feng had been able to take on more than 10 soul Douluo by himself because no one knew how strong he was. He had taken them by surprise, and he was very fast. That was why he had been able to take on so many soul Douluo. Now that so many people had come, if they surrounded Lin Feng, he felt that he might be killed. The main thing was the consecrators of the martial soul hall. If they also attacked, the danger would increase greatly. It seemed that he had to make a good plan this time, especially when it came to escaping. Two things would happen the next day. First, Ning Fengji and Dusty Heart would help them fight against the martial soul hall. By then, their titled Douluo would have Tang Hao, Douluo, Dusty Heart, his original body and clone, as well as Grandmaster and the other's 3-in-1 martial soul fusion skill. In total, they would have the combat strength of about 6 titled Douluo. Douluo and Grandmaster were on the same level. They were below the rank 96 titled Douluo. They could stop Iguan and Gue Mei. The other titled Douluo were above rank 96. It would be a piece of cake for them to fight 1 or 2 titled Douluo. Besides, with Ning Fengji's buff, 1 titled Douluo could fight 3 titled Douluos. Douluo and Grandmaster could also fight 2 titled Douluos each. Therefore, in total, their ideal combat strength was equivalent to 16 titled Douluo. Of course, that would only happen in a short period of time. Ning Fengji could only support so many titled Douluo for a couple of minutes. Taking into account the differences in the actual situation, it would be good enough if they could exert the combat strength of 10 titled Douluo. The second scenario was that Ning Fengji and Dusty Heart wouldn't participate in the battle. That was very likely to happen. After all, Ning Fengji was the sect master of the 7 Treasures Glazed sect. If the Pope threatened him, he wouldn't have the courage to risk the fate of the entire 7 Treasures Glazed sect. In the original book, Bibi Dong had threatened him and promised not to hurt Ning Rongrong. Therefore, Ning Fengji wouldn't take action. But at the moment, Lin Feng believed that if both Thanos and Doctor Strange showed up and said a few words, Ning Fengji would have the courage to take action. By then, a chaotic battle could break out. That would be the best time for Lin Feng to gain experience points. Only the martial soul hall? Of course not. Only children would make choices. He wanted all of them. Lin Feng wanted to earn experience points on both sides. Not only would he fight the martial soul hall, but he would also fight his own people. What a joke. He had been planning for almost a year. How could he only earn experience points on one side? When the chaotic battle broke out, he would create a lot of clones to fight everywhere. While stirring up the water, he would earn experience points from everyone. Of course, the premise was that he had to ensure his safety. Lin Feng had to carefully place clones in the Hall of Worship. If too many people came from there, he would have to retreat immediately. After all, he was strong enough to fight against 5 people at the same time, but his teammates weren't that strong. Besides, Bibi Dong's twin martial souls and 100,000-year soul ring were also very strong. Maybe he was in the middle of a god's test. If he used his divine power, he would have to run immediately. The continent of Douluo wasn't big, so the gods shouldn't be strong. But compared to the titled Douluo, they were not on the same level. Lin Feng was sure that he couldn't resist this kind of attack at the moment. He could only run. Of course, he could only think about it now. Everything had to wait until tomorrow. When the time came, he would have to act according to the situation. The night passed very quickly. It was very quiet, and nothing happened in the Martial Soul City. The next morning, the finals were finally about to begin. In the VIP seats in the square, Bibi Dong and Ning Fengji were already seated. The referee and the staff of the Martial Soul Hall had already arrived. If one looked carefully, one would find that many of these staff members were unfamiliar faces. They restrained their auras. On the surface, they looked like soul kings and soul emperors, but in fact, they were all soul Douluo. In fact, these people were the hidden strength of the martial soul hall. But now, in order to kill Tang San and Lin Feng, they all came out to deal with unexpected situations and ensure that they could kill them. Shrek's 7 monsters walked up the stairs. Accompanied by Grandmaster and the others, they walked step by step toward the square. On the other side, the 7 members of the Avengers had been waiting for a long time. They had arrived earlier than them. In fact, Bibi Dong was very surprised by the appearance of the Avengers, because last night she felt that it wasn't safe, so she sent Gue Mei to that small building to see if she could see Doctor Strange. But in the end, not only did Gue Mei not see Doctor Strange, but the 7 members of the Avengers also disappeared. And this morning, they suddenly appeared again. They just popped out of thin air. At this moment, the Martial Soul City was sealed very tightly. There were people from the Martial Soul Hall monitoring everywhere. But even so, no one knew how they came out. So at this moment, Bibi Dong was very surprised. She had a rough guess. It should be that Doctor Strange's doing. That guy's martial soul must be very special. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to enter and leave the Martial Soul City so silently. Although she was surprised, Bibi Dong didn't panic. When the time came, there would be people to deal with him. The finals of the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament are about to begin. Both teams get ready. The competition will officially begin in 15 minutes. The referee shouted. This last 15 minutes was the last time for everyone to adjust their condition. Tang San's team of 7 cheered each other on, shouting that they would definitely win. On the other hand, the Avengers were quiet, resting with their eyes closed. The contrast between the two was very strong. It gave people a very strange feeling, and they couldn't help but look askance. In fact, Lin Feng was conserving his energy. He couldn't exhaust too much of his mental strength, so he rested when he could and was ready for battle at any time. They didn't even look at us. These guys are so cold. Xiao Wu curled her lips. The Avengers have always been like this. According to Feng Ge, they're the kind of people who don't speak much. We have to be careful. Tang San's expression was serious. In everyone's eyes, the 7 members of the Avengers were very cold. So when Xue Qinghe and Steve talked a few days ago, they were very surprised. Of course, we have to be careful, but our tactics are definitely invincible. The championship will definitely be ours, Ning Rongrong said with a smile. Last night, they had discussed the details of their tactics. There would definitely be no problems today. We are the championship, Ma Hongjun said excitedly. Championship. The 7 of them shouted excitedly again. Young people were like this. They were full of vigor and momentum. If Lin Feng were to shout at himself, he would feel a little embarrassed. However, Tang San and the others shouted it very naturally. 15 minutes passed quickly, and the 2 teams arrived at the square under the lead of the referee. The competition is about to begin. Both sides can release their martial souls, the cardinal shouted. As soon as he finished speaking, both sides released their martial souls. Dai Mubai and the others stare at Steve and the others with sharp eyes. On the other side, each of them looked indifferent. Some of them didn't even open their eyes, as if they hadn't woken up yet. This made Dai Mubai and the others a little angry. This was the finals, and they looked down on them like this. It was really infuriating. All of them had decided that they would give them a good beating later. Just as the 2 of them released their martial souls, Bibi Dong suddenly looked at Ning Fengji, who was beside him. Sect Master Ning, who do you think will win? Bibi Dong's tone was calm, but there was a trace of majesty in it. Ning Fengji smiled and said, My daughter is in Shrek Academy's team. Of course I think Shrek's 7 monsters will win. The Pope's status was noble, but he was the sect master of the 7 treasures glazed sect. Although he wasn't on the same level, he wasn't far off. Therefore, he didn't need to use honorifics when speaking at this time. I see. I heard that your sect seems to have a good relationship with Tang San of Shrek's 7 monsters. You even bought a batch of powerful equipment from Tang San's Tang sect. Is this true? Bibi Dong suddenly said. This wasn't a big secret. Many forces in Heaven-Do City knew about it. The Martial Spirit Hall's intelligence network was all over Heaven-Do City, so it was easy for BB Dong to know about this. At this moment, as soon as she finished speaking, Ning Fengji's expression changed. Dusty Heart also clenched his fists. What did BB Dong mean by suddenly mentioning this? This was the finals. No matter what was said, it shouldn't be related to this matter. However, BB Dong mentioned it. It was very strange. With doubts, he smiled and said, "It's just some small things for self-defense. Our 7 treasures glazed sex soul masters are equipped with them. Even without the protection of a soul battle master, they can protect themselves to a certain extent. This thing is called a hidden weapon. Since the Pope suddenly asked about this, if you need it, the 7 treasures glazed sect can give some to the Martial Spirit Hall. No need to trouble sect Master Ning." BB Dong smiled and shook his head. Then he suddenly changed the topic and looked at Ning Fengji with sparkling eyes. "I heard that most of the people in the Tang sect are from the Strength clan, and the Strength clan is a vassal of the Clear Sky sect. Now that they suddenly changed their name to the Tang sect, what does Sect Master Ning think about this matter?" Hearing this, Ning Fengji understood. BB Dong should know about Tang San's identity. Even if he didn't know, he could roughly guess it. At this time, there was a deeper meaning to saying this. This reminded Ning Fengji of what the Great Master said to him after dinner last night. The Great Master said that there might be changes after today's finals. If something happened, he hoped that the 7 treasures glazed sect would lend a helping hand. After all, his daughter Ning Rongrong was also there. Lin Feng and Tang San were both geniuses that he thought highly of. At that time, Ning Fengji didn't think too much, so he hurriedly agreed. Now that he heard BB Dong's question, he felt that something big was going to happen. While thinking, he also said, "The Clan of Strength has already left the Clear Sky sect. Furthermore, the Clear Sky sect has also gone into seclusion. The Tang sect shouldn't be related to the Clear Sky sect." "That's not necessarily true. I heard that Tang San is Tang Hao's son." BB Dong's voice suddenly rose a notch. This made the atmosphere in the VIP seats a little tense. Dusty Heart's aura rose, and so did Gui, Mei, and Yuguan. At this time, Douluo suddenly laughed and said, "So what if he is?" "Tang Hao has already left the Clear Sky sect. Tang San is not related to the Clear Sky sect now." "Perhaps." BB Dong smiled and suddenly didn't say anything else. Ning Fengji, Dusty Heart, and Douluo instantly fell into deep thought. They were thinking about BB Dong's motive for saying this. Yesterday, they might not have felt anything. However, today BB Dong said this. They would be too stupid if they didn't see anything. Ning Fengji's gaze landed on a round table not far from the VIP seats. 3 soul bones were neatly placed there. It seemed that the Martial Spirit Palace was planning to take away the soul bones as a reward. This was the worst-case scenario that Ning Fengji could think of. As for killing someone in the plaza, as long as the Martial Spirit Palace wasn't crazy, they wouldn't do that. This was too unbelievable, so Ning Fengji didn't even think about it. The same went for Douluo. He found it hard to imagine that the Martial Spirit Palace would dare to kill someone when so many titled battle pet warriors like Douluo were present. The VIP seats were all wearing different expressions. Master Bai's face was also gloomy. He had been paying attention to BB Dong. He couldn't hear what they were talking about, but judging from Ning Fengji and Douluo's expressions, he could tell that something bad had happened. Because of this, Master Bai was a little worried about Tang San and the others. At that moment, the referee shouted, "Let the match begin." Chapter 382. At the referee's command, the 2 teams moved at the same time, attracting the attention of the audience. At this moment, Tang San no longer hid. He directly released his 4th soul skill, Blue-Silver Cage. In an instant, countless blue-silver grass appeared under the feet of the 7 Avengers, surging like a blue ocean. Ordinary people could only see this blue color, but BB Dong's eyes were sharp, and she had been paying attention to Tang San. When this soul skill was released, she saw a trace of gold in the middle of the blue-silver grass. That was the Blue-Silver Emperor. At this point, Bibi Dong was 100% sure that Tang San was Tang Hao's son, because that person was the Blue-Silver Emperor. While Bibi Dong was thinking about this, the 7 members of the Avengers quickly gathered together. The blue-silver grass quickly gathered together and turned into a large cage, enveloping the 7 of them. However, the moment before it enveloped them, Thunder God Thor raised the hammer in his hand, and lightning flashed. The others also released their soul rings, ready to attack. On the other side, taking advantage of the trapping, Tang San's Oscar quickly made berserk intestines and flying mushroom intestines and distributed them to Zhu Zhuqing and Dai Mubai. The 2 of them had activated their martial soul fusion skill and were the main attackers, so they had to be strengthened first. After that, he made the other sausages and tried to distribute them all within 5 seconds. At this time, Oscar didn't need to chant any soul incantation to make sausages. He could even make 2 or 3 sausages at a time, and his speed was extremely fast. Ning Rongrong at the side also instantly strengthened the combatants. She didn't need to be in a hurry to care about the others. After trapping them, Tang San waited for Oscar's sausages. As long as he ate the sausages, he would directly go to the middle area with Xiao Wu and use their martial soul fusion skill. At this moment, with a wave of thunder, Tang San's blue-silver cage was directly electrocuted into ashes. In fact, after Tang San's martial soul evolved, the toughness of his blue-silver grass had increased exponentially. Even Zhao Wuji had to use all his strength to pull it apart, allowing him to easily block attacks from Soul Emperors. However, that was only for ordinary attacks. If it was a martial soul that countered it, such as fire or lightning, it would be a different story. Ma Hongjuan's flames were able to burn through the blue-silver grass, and his lightning attribute attack was even more tyrannical. Under his lightning attack, the blue-silver cage directly exploded. Tang San had already expected this. He did not think that he could stop them for long. At this moment, he shouted, "Mubai, go. Take Shi, find an opportunity. Fatty, interfere. I'll support you." In fact, these tactics had already been discussed. At this time, Tang San shouted just to strengthen the momentum. "All right." Dai Mubai smiled slightly. The flaming white tiger phantom above his head let out a deafening roar, and then directly rushed toward the 7 people. At this time, Dai Mubai's momentum was very strong. Back then, he could also fight Soul Emperors head-on. Facing 7 Soul Ancestors, he did not panic at all. The main thing was that he still had his teammates to support him from his side. Dai Mubai pressed forward with indomitable will. Zhu Zhuqing directly merged into her shadow and disappeared. She wanted to give the enemy a strong psychological pressure. No one knew where her attack would come from. Ma Hongjun looked for an opportunity to fly into the sky. He was very vigilant, guarding against the Thunder God's hammer. At the same time, he spat out flames and attacked behind him. Outside the square, Lin Feng's eyes narrowed, and he became slightly solemn. This was a test he gave Tang San's team of 7. He would not go easy on them at all. He would use his limit of rank 49 to fight against Tang San and the others. As long as Tang San and the others played well, they could still win. If there was a mistake, they might even lose. While thinking about this, the Avengers in the square also moved. Hawkeye directly raised his bow and shot an arrow at Dai Mubai. The latter smiled contemptuously. Too slow, he easily dodged to the side. However, the arrow directly exploded in front of him, forming an area of smoke. Tang San and the others suddenly lost the vision of the 7 people of the Avengers. This kind of smoke was very special. Tang San's purple demon eyes could not see through it. The plan is unchanged. Tang San shouted as he rushed into the smoke. Although the smoke was a bit unexpected, it did not affect anything. At the same time, the Hulk's body suddenly expanded and stood at the front. The hammer in Thor's hand was enlarged several times, and then he directly put the hammer in Hulk's hand. In the next second, the soul power in their bodies fused together, and Hulk's figure became larger again. Lightning surrounded his body, which was extremely terrifying. What a strong martial soul fusion skill. At this time, Hulk's aura was extremely powerful, almost the same as Dai Mubai's flaming white tiger. It was the first time for many people to see this kind of martial soul fusion skill. The martial soul fusion skill of two soul ancestors was comparable to that of a soul king and a soul ancestor. It was really too strong. This martial soul fusion value is almost close to the limit of 10. The master exclaimed. At this time, he was holding the martial soul fusion value detector in his hand, and the value displayed on it was 9. 6. It was simply too strong, equivalent to the combined strength of the two people more than 9 times. At this time, when Xiao Wu and Tang San released their martial soul fusion skill, the value was only a little more than 8. This 9. 6 was really amazing. However, this was not the end. Everyone was surprised to find that not only did the Thunder God give the hammer to Hulk, but the shield in the hand of Steve, who was next to him, also became a little bigger and flew into Hulk's hand. At this time, Hulk held the Mjolnir in his right hand and the shield in his left hand. He looked very much like Captain 50-50 who fought against Thanos in the movie. This is a Trinity martial soul fusion skill. This scene shocked everyone. In the entire world of Soul Masters, everyone had only seen a Trinity martial soul fusion skill from the golden iron triangle of the Master. 2 soul sages and a soul grandmaster were able to summon a golden dragon that could contend against title Douluo. Now that the 3 soul ancestors displayed such a powerful soul skill, its power was enough to be compared to Douluo. While everyone was shocked, they also had a puzzled look on their faces. A beast martial soul and 2 tool martial souls. The martial souls of these 3 were not of the same type. No matter how one looked at it, their affinity would not be very high. But now, they were performing a martial soul fusion, which was really puzzling. The master did not have any doubts about this, because he had heard this theory from Lin Feng. The most important thing between martial soul fusion was the control of soul power. As long as the martial souls were not of 2 extremes, they could basically release a martial soul fusion skill. At this time, although the martial souls of these 3 people were different, they did not conflict. As long as their control of soul power was strong enough, they could unleash a Trinity martial soul fusion skill. Of course, only Tang San and the others in Martial Spirit City knew about this. The others were shocked at this time and did not understand what was going on. At this time, Tang San and Dai Mubai had just rushed out of the smoke area. Originally, they should have been able to discover this point a step earlier and then have time to retreat. But because of the obstruction of the smoke, they were a little slower. Retreat. Everyone gather. Tang San roared. At the same time, he released the blue-silver cage again, wanting to stop the green giant. He could tell that this was a Trinity martial soul fusion skill. The control of the 3 people's soul power was much stronger than his. At least until now, Tang San was not confident that he could unleash such a powerful soul skill with others. If he was with Fengge as the lead, he could still use it with Xiao Wu. But with Xiao Wu as the lead, there was still no way to release it. This was too difficult. Under the situation where their martial souls were not particularly close, the requirement of soul power control for the 3 people's martial soul fusion was too high. It was almost perfect. Tang San was still far from it. So at this time, he was very shocked by Hulk's performance. But he also knew that now was not the time to be shocked. They had to gather together and unleash a 7-in-1 martial soul fusion skill. Only then would they have a chance to win this soul battle. Otherwise, they would lose. Tang San's blue-silver cage had just risen when the Mjolnir in the green giant's hand flickered with lightning and destroyed the cage in an instant. Then, the green giant smashed his shield at Dai Mubai. The latter felt the tiger's roar behind him and wanted to block, but Tang San shouted, "Mubai, go back and defend." "I'll block it." Dai Mubai had to go back. Otherwise, he would be in trouble if he was stopped here. Tang San roared, and the 8 spider spears on his back instantly burst out. His upper clothes exploded, and he instantly appeared in front of Dai Mubai. Clang! The 8 spears were placed in front of him. Tang San used all his strength to block the attack. The huge impact sent him flying more than 20 meters away. Fortunately, He used the blue-silver grass to hold on to the ground. Otherwise, he would have been sent flying just now. In fact, fly with the momentum was also a way to reduce the impact. Otherwise, Tang San would have been seriously injured if he had taken the attack head-on. One had to know that that was an attack at the level of Douluo. It was already very impressive that he could block it. After landing, he coughed twice and quickly ate one of Oscar's recovery sausages. Attachment soul bone. Outside the plaza, many people exclaimed. Bibi Dong's eyes flashed with a cold light. She had already estimated that Tang San was a genius. The threat level was even higher than Lin Feng's. But now he actually had an attachment soul bone on him. This was something more precious than a 100,000-year soul ring. It was the #1 treasure in the entire world of soul masters. Bibi Dong glanced at it. If not for the fact that the soul bone had completely fused with Tang San, she would have suddenly attacked and killed Tang San. Even so, she still released her aura slightly, causing Dusty Heart and Douluo to be on guard. But at the same time, they were also shocked by Tang San's attachment soul bone. Tang San had never revealed this thing before. It was also the first time they saw it. It had to be said that today's championship competition had brought too many surprises to everyone. Xiao Wu's fourth 10,000-year soul ring, Dai Mubai, and Zhu Zhuqing's martial soul fusion skill, the Trinity martial soul fusion skill, and now, the attachment soul bone. These things, no matter in which competition, could be regarded as the focus of the whole audience. But in this year's competition, they all appeared together. It was too rare. Everyone could see that with the growth of this generation, the world of soul masters would welcome a lot of powerful soul masters. It was even possible that there would be more than a dozen titled Douluo. Of course, Bibi Dong could also foresee this. For the future of the Martial Spirit Hall, it was best for these people to join the Martial Spirit Hall. If they couldn't be roped in, then they would be killed. They would never allow people who obstructed the Martial Spirit Hall's plan to live, especially a group of powerful geniuses. If they went against the Martial Spirit Hall, it might even lead to the destruction of the Martial Spirit Hall. Thinking of this, Bibi Dong's eyes became even colder. At this time, Tang San's blue-silver grass danced, bringing everyone to his side. Mubai, hold on, the others come over, soul power fusion. In front, the flaming white tiger phantasm above Dai Mubai's head dissipated directly, and then turned into a large yellow shield more than 10 meters wide, blocking in front of them. On the opposite side, Hulk grabbed the shield that was bounced back, then grabbed his hammer and smashed toward Dai Mubai. Behind him, the other teammates were also preparing to flank, wanting to interrupt the 7 people's joint skill. The Black Panther disappeared directly and instantly came to Ning Rongrong's side, clawing at her. However, at this time, Zhu Zhuqing seemed to have expected this scene and also clawed at him. The two clashed, and the Black Panther retreated in an instant. He had to retreat. If he didn't, Tang San's blue-silver grass would wrap around his body in an instant. Outside the square, Tang San nodded with a smile on his face, expressing his affirmation of Zhu Zhuqing's reaction and vigilance. This girl usually trained the hardest and learned the most. Now, it could be said that she was the one who improved the most besides Tang San. There was no need to talk about Tang San. This guy had cheats, and his purple demon eyes were open. It was not surprising that he had this kind of reaction. After the Black Panther retreated, Tang San used the blue-silver cage for the 3rd time. However, this time, he didn't use it on others. Instead, he created a natural barrier of blue-silver grass around Shrek's 7 monsters. Under Tang San's pseudo-blue-silver domain, the blue-silver grass was exceptionally lush, and there was a golden light in the middle. In the dark, Tang Hao, who had been secretly watching, was already crying. He realized that Tang San and Ian were becoming more and more similar, especially the blue-silver emperor. It was exactly the same. Tang Hao saw Ian's appearance on Tang San's body. However, at the same time, he was also very shocked. When did Tang San change from blue-silver grass to blue-silver emperor? Previously, he had to deal with some things, so he didn't pay attention to Tang San for a period of time. He only sneaked into Martial Spirit City a few rounds after the finals had started. At this moment, it was Tang San's first time officially making a move, so Tang Hao was a little shocked. However, in the next second, something even more shocking happened. Hulk was very strong. He smashed Dai Mubai's shield with his hammer, then continued to attack everyone. At this moment, Dai Mubai clearly didn't have the strength to block another attack, and the others couldn't either. Under such circumstances, Tang San stood out and revealed all of his soul rings. Yellow, yellow, purple, black, black. Soul King. Furthermore, he was a Soul King with two 10,000-year soul rings. Especially the fifth soul ring, it exuded a powerful aura. The moment this soul ring appeared, it suddenly lit up. At this moment, Tang San was actually lifted into the air by this aura, and a blue-silver spear appeared in his hand. Then, when the aura condensed to its peak, Tang San smashed it towards Hulk. It could be said that the power of Tang San's soul skill was enough to reach the level of Soul Douluo's. What a joke! A 45,000-year soul ring brought about a soul skill. An ordinary Soul Douluo's 8th soul ring was at this level. Tang San's spear might not be able to reach the power of Soul Douluo's 8th soul skill, but was enough to threaten Soul Douluo's life. It was equivalent to a Soul Sage's all-out attack. Facing this attack, Hulk also stopped his forward momentum and used a shield to block it in place. Clang! The blue-silver tyrant spear collided with the shield, and a loud and clear sound rang out. Hulk did not retreat a single step, but a crack appeared on the shield. However, Steve, who was behind him, quickly infused his soul power into the shield and repaired it in an instant. It didn't cause any harm to Hulk, but this scene still shocked everyone. Is this guy really a Soul King? His 5th soul skill is actually so powerful? The red-robed bishop, who was the referee's forehead, was full of sweat. He had a feeling that if that spear had been aimed at him, he would have been killed if he couldn't react in time, even with his rank 76 soul power. This scene was too shocking. A Soul King unleashed strength that was close to Soul Douluo's level. It was simply terrifying. Everyone from the Martial Soul Hall didn't know what to say at this moment, and they were all in a daze. No matter who it was in the VIP seats, everyone had a serious look on their faces. Yu Guan, Gue Mei, and Bibi Dong all felt that Tang San was simply too talented. Not only did he have twin martial souls, external soul bones, and a 10,000-year soul ring, but he was also able to unleash such a powerful attack as a Soul King. This was simply too terrifying. With such a leap in strength, wouldn't he be able to threaten titled Douluo when he became a Soul Sage? If he went a little higher and reached Soul Douluo's level, they might not even be able to defeat him. Tang San was too much of a threat, and he had to be eliminated. Ning Fengji, Dugabo, and Dusty Heart all had serious looks on their faces because they had felt the killing intent from them earlier. That's right, they were sitting right next to them, and they had all felt the killing intent that flashed past. It seemed like Tang San was too talented, and he had threatened the Martial Soul Hall's rule. Once the tournament was over, the Martial Soul Hall would definitely make a big move. When that happened, danger would come. At this moment, the three of them were slightly tense as they thought about what to do later. Outside the plaza, the masters didn't cheer. Instead, they were a little worried. On one hand, they were worried that the people from a Martial Soul Hall would make a move, and on the other hand, they were worried about Tang San. Although Tang San had a lot of soul power, he couldn't continuously use a 10,000-year soul skill. At this moment, the soul power in his body was somewhat insufficient. If the opponent seized the opportunity to break through their defense, they might not be able to use their combined skill because Tang San was the core of the 7-man combined skill. Fortunately, the 7-man combined skill had entered the final stage. When Tang San landed on the ground after releasing the blue-silver tyrant spear, the other 6 people connected their soul power to Tang San. In an instant, the soul power in Tang San's body was restored. At the same time, his body was filled with strength, and his body emitted a 9-colored light. He brought the other 6 people and slowly rose into the sky. At this moment, although the martial souls of the 7 people hadn't merged, their soul power was connected, and it greatly increased Tang San's strength. The 5th soul ring on his body suddenly enlarged, and shone with an intense black light. There were many forms of combined skills. Some were created by everyone using the same low-level soul skill, and then the power of these soul skills were released together. Some were like Tang San, merging the soul power of others into one person's body, greatly increasing one's strength. At this moment, Tang San not only became stronger, but the soul skills he used were also stronger. In total, Tang San's strength was almost equivalent to a soul Douluo. Only Tang San's physical fitness was strong enough to support such strength. Otherwise, if it were someone else, they wouldn't be able to use it at all. At this moment, Tang San used his fifth soul skill again, the blue-silver tyrant spear, strengthened by the soul power of the 7 people. As the soul ring shone brightly, a long spear that was more than 10 meters long and emitted a blue-silver light appeared. The light on it was incomparably dazzling, not only illuminating the entire square, even a magnificent Pope's palace, not far away, seemed to be covered with a layer of blue gauze. This spear was very beautiful, but the aura on it was extremely powerful. There was even a phantom holding the spear, pointing it at Hulk in the square. The 7 people from the Avengers Alliance below were not idle either. After being unable to stop the 7 people from using their combined skills, they quickly reacted and began to use soul skills to harass them. However, Tang San's soul power fluctuations were too strong, and those soul skills were all blocked in midair, as if there was a transparent barrier blocking them. Hulk swung his hammer fiercely. Although it affected Tang San and the others, it wasn't able to interrupt their combined skills. Seeing this, the 7 people from the Avengers Alliance also gathered together and sent their soul power into Hulk's body. At this moment, Hulk grew a little taller again, about 8 meters tall. The hammer and shield in his hands also grew bigger, and his strength skyrocketed. Hulk only needed to take 2 steps to damage the arena that was reinforced by soul tools. Especially the aura on his body now was really terrifying. Around the square, the soul masters below the soul sage level couldn't help but retreat. Even the soul sages had to use their soul power to resist, otherwise it would be a little uncomfortable. Just when the 2 sides had reached the peak, Tang San let out a loud roar and slashed down with his giant spear. The 7 of them gathered together and also pressed down with the shadow of the spear. Below, Hulk had already held his shield firmly, and the Mjolnir in his right hand was surrounded by lightning as he hammered upwards with all his might. Boom! One above and one below. The 2 powerful forces collided together and let out a shocking sound. An incomparably huge soul power fluctuation swept across the entire square, and the stones on the arena shattered inch by inch, and the closer ones even turned into powder. Under this impact, the weaker ones were directly sent flying by the aura, and only the stronger soul masters were able to use their soul power to resist. The VIP seats were definitely fine. They were all experts and easily resisted the shockwave. However, the impact on their souls made them unable to calm down for a long time. This was only a battle between a group of soul ancestors and soul kings, but it gave people the feeling that 2 soul Douluo were fighting. It was really too shocking. Chapter 383. At this moment, the entire plaza was filled with smoke and dust due to the countless shattered rocks. For a moment, no one could see the situation clearly. Everyone knew that this was a battle of strength between the 2 sides. In the end, the champion should be out. At this moment, everyone became nervous. Some were nervous about who the champion would be, while Douluo and the others were nervous about the martial soul hall's movements. They were afraid that they would suddenly make a move. Just like this, under everyone's anticipation, the smoke and dust in the center of the plaza gradually dissipated, revealing the scene inside. Outside the plaza, Lin Feng revealed a relieved smile. He knew that Tang San and the others had won. The Trinity Martial Soul Fusion skill that he had used had been executed by 3 rank 49 soul ancestors, and there were even other soul ancestors who had cooperated to attack. There was actually an upper limit to these attacks added together, and Tang San's giant spear had exceeded this upper limit. In the end, with this slight advantage, Tang San's group of 7 was able to win this exchange. When the smoke and dust dissipated, the 7 members of the Avengers were all lying on the ground, while Shrek's 7 monsters slowly floated down from the sky. Although they were all panting, their faces were brimming with smiles. It was really too dangerous just now. If it weren't for Tang San and Dai Mubai's continuous defense, if the other party had rushed over, they would have definitely lost if any one of them was seriously injured. Fortunately, the 2 of them were strong. Although they were slightly injured, it wasn't a big deal. Zhu Zhuqing also blocked Hey Panther's attack and successfully used the 7-man combination skill in the end. At this moment, there was a 10-meter-wide crater in the center of the plaza. It was caused by the clash just now, and the destructive power caused the spectators to swallow a mouthful of saliva. The referee was also shocked. Was this really a soul skill that could be used in a battle between a soul ancestor and a soul king? It was simply too inconceivable. At this moment, Tang San and the others glanced at the referee. Only then did the latter react and step forward to confirm the status of the 7 members of the Avengers. After a few seconds, he shouted, "I announce that the champion of the Continental Elite Academy Tournament is Shrek Academy." Hearing this, Tang San and the others breathed a sigh of relief and looked at each other at the same time. "We are the champions, huh? We are the champions." The 7 of them spoke softly at first, but then they roared, "Our Shrek Academy is the champion, the champion." The 7 of them hugged each other excitedly as they shared their joy. The Grandmaster and the others also walked up excitedly. Lin Feng also walked up with a smile. He was happy for Tang San and the others. Perhaps this match was nothing to Lin Feng. He even felt that it was a little boring. It was just a game of calculation. But in the eyes of Tang San and the others, that was a goal they had been striving for the past year. Now that they had achieved it, of course, they were excited. "Feng Ge, we won. We won the championship." Seeing Lin Feng come over, a group of people gathered around him, their faces full of excitement. In the face of everyone's pride and excitement, Lin Feng smiled and replied, "You earned this with your own efforts." Just as Shrek Academy was cheering excitedly, the 7 members of the Avengers had already stood up and slowly walked out of the arena. Because everyone's attention was on Shrek's side, no one cared about them. But there were still 2 red-robed bishops from the Martial Soul Hall watching the 7 of them. Their task was very simple: control the 7 of them later. But now, their faces were full of seriousness. The performance of the Avengers was too strong. They felt that the 2 of them couldn't control them at all. They needed 2 more people. At the same time, a few elders from the Martial Soul Hall quietly came around the plaza, ready to carry out their plan. The feeling of an impending storm was becoming more and more intense, and the stronger soul masters present could all feel it a little. On the VIP platform, Douluo looked at Bibi Dong and said in a deep voice, "Pope, this is a continental competition. Please be careful." He could feel that there were strong people coming out from the Pope's side, which made him very vigilant. On the side, Dusty Heart also felt it. At this moment, he was discussing with Ning Fengji what to do. At this moment, Bibi Dong stood up and smiled. "What are you talking about, Your Holiness Douluo? I don't understand. I just want to give the Shrek Academy an award." "You." Douluo Bo's eyes widened, and he was a little angry. Wasn't it obvious that they were blind? With so many titled soul masters coming out, Soul Douluo could sense Soul Douluo. However, Bibi Dong ignored him. Instead, she stood up with Yuguan and Gue Mei and announced calmly, "The champion of this year's Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament is Shrek Academy. Congratulations, you are the pride of the Soul Master world." Bibi Dong didn't want to fall out with the 2 empires yet. Furthermore, she had to maintain the reputation of the Martial Soul Hall. Therefore, she had to give out the 3 soul bones, even if she didn't want to. Bibi Dong's voice attracted everyone's attention. Shrek's 7 monsters also stopped cheering and looked over. At this moment, Tang San realized that Bibi Dong seemed to be staring at him again. This made him feel a little uneasy. He said to Lin Feng, "Feng Ge, I feel that the Pope already knows my identity. Something might happen later." This wasn't difficult to guess. When someone tried to assassinate him on the way here, Tang San had already guessed that this day would come. However, he had the same thought as Master and the others. With so many titled soul masters around, even if Bibi Dong wanted to do something, she would have to be careful of the consequences. Therefore, in the end, nothing big would happen. Nothing big will happen. Mr. Destroy is here. Lin Feng smiled. At this moment, Lin Feng was actually a clone. His original body and avatar had become Steve and Saul. Lin Feng's 8th soul skill allowed him to teleport. At the same time, he could also switch places with his avatar. With his current strength, soul power, and control of the 1,000 Trickery Ruler, switching places was just a matter of an instant. After he released his soul skill, his soul power fluctuations were completely controlled by him. There was no leakage at all. No one noticed this. Mr. Destroy is here? Tang San was stunned. Of course. Lin Feng smiled and didn't say anything. As for Tang San's side, he heaved a sigh of relief. Looks like nothing would happen today. To Tang San and the others, Mr. Destroy was an invincible god of war. They had never seen Mr. Destroy lose in a long time. He was invincible. Under such circumstances, even if the Martial Soul Hall wanted to do something to them, Tang San had nothing to worry about. At this moment, Bibi Dong used his soul power to float in the air with 3 soul bones. Then, he came to the square. The red-robed referee shouted, "Representatives of the Shrek Academy, please come forward to receive the 3 soul bones for the championship." 3 soul bones floated in front of Bibi Dong. They shone brightly, causing a trace of greed to appear in everyone's eyes. However, Bibi Dong did not give him a second glance. Instead, he looked straight at Tang San and Lin Feng, who was beside him. These 2 people were the targets that the Martial Soul Hall wanted to kill later. Bibi Dong's thoughts aside, the 7 people from the Shrek Academy all looked at Lin Feng after hearing Bibi Dong's words. "Feng Ge, didn't you say that you would accept the skull after we won the championship? Now that we have won the championship, you can represent our academy to receive the award." The 7 people said sincerely. The Grandmaster nodded and said, "Xiao Feng, speaking of which, the person who can represent the 7 of them the most is not themselves, nor is it us teachers. It's you. If it weren't for your teachings, I don't think Xiao San and the rest would be so outstanding. You deserve to represent them to receive this honor today." "That's right. That's the way it should be." Zhao Wuji laughed. Flanders and the rest nodded. They had seen Lin Feng's actions. There was nothing wrong with representing the Shrek Academy to receive the award. Lin Feng smiled and said, "I didn't say that I wanted this soul bone if you won the championship. I really don't care about this thing. But since you wanted to go up and get it, I'll go up and get it." Lin Feng went up to get it mainly because he wanted to get closer to Bibi Dong. This guy had been looking at him a lot just now. Now that he was closer, he wanted to feel Bibi Dong's beauty up close. As he thought about this, Lin Feng looked relaxed and walked slowly toward Bibi Dong. Everyone in the audience was watching this scene. When they saw Lin Feng's expression, they were shocked. This guy was so relaxed. He was so relaxed in front of the Pope. He was too strong. At the same time, everyone was puzzled. Who is this guy? Shouldn't one of the Shrek 7 monsters go up to receive the award? At the very least, it should be the teacher or the dean. But now, a very unfamiliar guy rushed up. Everyone was puzzled. After all, Lin Feng was too young and had not gone up before. It could be said that other than the people from the Shrek Academy, only Bibi Dong looked at Lin Feng. Everyone else was unfamiliar with Lin Feng. At this moment, Bibi Dong was also a little surprised. She knew that Lin Feng's identity was not ordinary, but he had nothing to do with the competition. Now that he went up to receive the award, it was really surprising. However, she didn't say anything. She just smiled and watched Lin Feng arrive. Not far away, Douluo was ready to attack. If Bibi Dong wanted to harm Lin Feng, he would immediately attack. On the side, Yuan had been watching Douluo. After seeing his situation, he couldn't help but say, "Old poison, you'd better behave. Otherwise, you'll be affected." Yu Guan's martial soul was the strange velvet sky chrysanthemum, which was very resistant to poison. It could be said to be the perfect counter to Douluo's snake venom. Therefore, BB Dong specially arranged for him to watch Douluo, Chrysanthemum Guan. I advise the Martial Soul Palace to behave. You've seen Mr. Destroy's strength. If something happens to the Shrek Academy today, the Martial Soul Palace will not have peace in the future. Douluo snorted coldly. The threat of the Martial Soul Palace was nothing to him. Who was Thanos? He was a powerful existence who had received the inheritance of a god. It was very likely that he would become a god in the future. With such a powerhouse supporting him, Douluo was not afraid of anyone. Who are you trying to scare? Thanos didn't come at all. Even if he did, would he dare to attack the Martial Soul Palace? Gue Mei shook his head. To be honest, BB Dong was also afraid of Thanos. Yu Guan and Gue Mei had fought with him before, so they knew his strength. But now, they knew that Thanos didn't come. Moreover, they had set up a patrol around a Martial Soul city. If a powerful soul master broke in, he would definitely be discovered. Because of these measures, BB Dong didn't take Thanos into consideration when he calculated the strength of the Martial Soul Palace. Mr. Destroy is very resourceful. Although the Martial Soul Palace is powerful, it's not invincible. When the time comes, you'll have to bear the consequences. Douluo's face was calm. Hearing this, Yu Guan and Gue Mei didn't say anything. Thanos was powerful, but to say that he could threaten the Martial Soul Palace was a bit boastful. The two of them were defeated by Thanos because they were careless. If they were to fight again, even if they couldn't win, they wouldn't be defeated so quickly. Moreover, they heard from the Pope that when the time came, there would even be consecrators. If Thanos came, they wouldn't be afraid. Just as they were thinking about this, Lin Feng had already arrived in front of BB Dong. To be honest, Lin Feng didn't believe that BB Dong was already 50 years old. Her face was too perfect. There were no flaws. Time didn't leave any traces on her body. It was not an exaggeration to say that she was beautiful. Although Zhu Zhuqing and Ning Rongrong were beautiful, they were still young. However, BB Dong was so beautiful that it was suffocating. As for Qian Renxue, perhaps because her clothes were more masculine, Lin Feng didn't feel that she was too stunning. He felt that she didn't inherit BB Dong's excellence. But now, BB Dong's clothes, hair, face, and scepter all supported her noble temperament. At this moment, Lin Feng was even a little absent-minded. However, he didn't look at her for long. Although he was thick-skinned, it was too rude to keep staring at her. Even so, BB Dong still looked at Lin Feng for a few seconds. At this moment, BB Dong felt the feeling of being scrutinized from Lin Feng's eyes. It was very strange. A guy who was so much younger than you was actually scrutinizing you. When Lin Feng came closer, BB Dong smiled and said, "Lin Feng, right? I heard that Shrek's 7 monsters were all taught by you. I wonder if such an outstanding person is interested in joining our Martial Soul Palace? I can make an exception and promote you to an elder of the Martial Soul Palace." After more than half a year of power struggle, BB Dong's position as the Pope in the Martial Soul Palace was much more stable. Although there were still voices of opposition, it was no longer important. Under such conditions, as long as Lin Feng was really capable, it wouldn't be a big deal for her to give Lin Feng the position of an elder. Furthermore, BB Dong didn't give out elder positions randomly. After a few days of investigation, she knew that Lin Feng was the main reason why Shrek's 7 monsters could be so powerful. This was a guy who was even more powerful than a master. Even if he was really trained by Tang Chun, as long as she could rope him into the Martial Soul Palace, BB Dong was confident that she could make Lin Feng submit. At this moment, BB Dong didn't know Lin Feng's strength. Of course, no one knew. If she knew, BB Dong might have directly promised such a genius the position of Pope. "You want to rope me in?" Lin Feng wasn't surprised by BB Dong's decision. This was normal. Smart people could see his handsomeness and excellence. Lin Feng didn't directly refuse this invitation. Instead, he smiled and said, "I'll think about it." BB Dong was stunned. She didn't expect to hear such an answer. She frowned slightly and asked, "Is Tang San your younger brother? What's your relationship with Tang Hao?" The two of them suddenly began to converse. This was something that no one had expected, especially since BB Dong used her soul power to isolate the surrounding space. No one could hear what they were saying. "Guess." Lin Feng looked into Bibi Dong's eyes and said confidently, "You." Bibi Dong's beautiful brows furrowed. At this moment, she suddenly understood how Douluo felt just now. Being rendered speechless by a single sentence was probably the best way to describe the current state they were in now. The most infuriating thing was that Bibi Dong didn't dare to do anything in front of so many people. Moreover, Lin Feng said that he could think about it, which made Bibi Dong somewhat expectant. If such a talent was recruited by the Martial Spirit Hall, wouldn't there be hundreds of geniuses in the next few years after training? Even if they weren't as powerful as Shrek's 7 monsters, it would be very good if they were half as powerful as them. Because of this, Bibi Dong had to endure Lin Feng's rudeness. "Don't be anxious, Pope. Do you have any other questions?" Lin Feng's face was filled with a happy smile. Even if Bibi Dong was angry, her face was still very beautiful. It didn't ruin her beauty at all. Bibi Dong could feel Lin Feng's joy. "This rude guy dares to laugh at me. How dare he?" But at the same time, Bibi Dong was even more curious about Lin Feng. She asked, "Who is Thanos? Why has he been challenging Title Douluo all these years?" Title Douluo would fight with each other, but it was usually a fixed number of people, and the frequency was not very high. Sometimes, they wouldn't even fight once a year. But Thanos was different. This guy was a brute. On average, he would fight one battle every half a month. Sometimes, he would fight one against 2, or even one against 3, and the opponents were different people. It was really shocking. Until now, Bibi Dong still didn't understand what Thanos' purpose was. This time, Lin Feng didn't tease Bibi Dong. Instead, he said with a serious face, "Thanos is the director of the Universe Family Planning Bureau. His purpose is to exterminate half of the universe's population for the sake of family planning. But I think his path is a bit extreme. This is not good." Bibi Dong. Why did it feel like Lin Feng's answer was a bit irrelevant? He was asking why he wanted to challenge Douluo. What the hell was the universe? A certain place? Why did he want to exterminate half of the people there? What did family planning mean? Why did he go astray again? Bibi Dong felt that all of this was unreal. She couldn't understand it all, but Lin Feng said it with a serious face. No matter how she looked at it, it didn't seem like he was lying. This really gave Bibi Dong a headache. While the two of them were talking, the atmosphere outside was a bit strange. The whole place was extremely quiet, waiting for the two of them to finish their conversation. Several people from the Shrek Academy were whispering. Tang San and the others used their soul power to block the sound to prevent it from spreading. On the other hand, Xueqinghe was a bit nervous. His heart was beating fast, afraid that Lin Feng and Bibi Dong would talk about him. Especially just now, Bibi Dong even glanced at him, which made Xueqinghe's heart jump to his throat. Of course, Bibi Dong didn't look at him again, which made him feel relieved. At this time, inside Bibi Dong's soul power barrier, she finally asked the question in her heart. Universe? Family planning? What does that mean? And why did Thanos kill half of the people in the universe? To be honest, this question made Lin Feng feel very funny, because Bibi Dong didn't know the meaning of these words, which was very funny. However, Lin Feng did not have the intention to explain this to Bibi Dong. He took a deep breath and smirked. He smiled and said, "Why don't you guess?" Ah! In his heart, Bibi Dong was already yelling in anger. If he yelled out, the monsters would probably call him an expert. But it was a pity that these were only cries in his heart. On the surface, Bibi Dong's face was still calm. Congratulations again to Shrek Academy for winning the championship. Bibi Dong quickly returned the soul bone to Lin Feng as he spoke through gritted teeth. At this time, she really didn't want to talk to Lin Feng anymore. This guy was too infuriating. If it weren't for Lin Feng's ability being really strong, Bibi Dong would have slapped him to death at this time. But just now, he said that he would think about it, which made Bibi Dong still have hope in his heart. Later, he would take down Tang San and Lin Feng first. If Lin Feng joined their martial spirit hall, it would be okay to keep Tang San alive. Even if he didn't agree, both of their lives could actually be kept first. They would be trapped in the martial spirit hall. Bibi Dong would rope them in over the years, and there would be a day when he succeeded. And Bibi Dong could feel that although Lin Feng's words were very annoying, It was undeniable that he was a smart person. And dealing with smart people was the most worry-free. Bibi Dong felt that Lin Feng would definitely make the best choice. "Thank you, Your Holiness the Pope." Lin Feng took the 3 soul bones from Bibi Dong's hand and smiled slightly. At this moment, many soul masters around looked at him with greedy eyes. Previously, when those soul bones were in front of the Pope, they didn't dare to be too obvious even if they wanted them. Now that they were in Lin Feng's hands, their gazes became much bolder. However, they were just thinking about it. In front of the Pope, they didn't dare to really make a move. Of course, if these 3 soul bones were not absorbed, some people might take the risk out of desperation. The soul bones are not bad. Take them. After Lin Feng grabbed the 3 soul bones and came in front of everyone, he directly threw the soul bones over. Everyone was shocked by this scene. This was a soul bone, not some worthless toy. How could he throw it away so casually as if it were trash? That was truly shocking. It wasn't that they couldn't be thrown away. It was just like a diamond that was worth $1 billion. It could be thrown away, but no one would throw it away because it was too valuable. At this moment, the soul bones were the same, which was why it was shocking. Chapter 384. Feng Gu. This wisdom skull can greatly increase a soul master's spiritual power. Take it. After receiving the soul bone, everyone hurriedly persuaded him. In their opinion, it was impossible for Lin Feng not to need this 50,000-year skull. Now that he gave it to them, it could only mean that Lin Feng was too good to them. This made them extremely touched, and they expressed that they must let Lin Feng absorb this skull. Lin Feng looked helpless. "I really don't need it. Actually, I already have it." As he spoke, Lin Feng's soul power moved slightly. In an instant, his body exuded an enormous aura of a ferocious beast. Tang San and the others were scared silly. Even Flender and the others who were at the side felt their hair stand on end. When a soul master absorbed a soul ring, he would usually erase the soul beast's will within it, and then absorb the soul ring's power. However, absorbing a soul bone was different. Normally, a soul bone would contain the enormous aura of an origin soul beast. If a soul master absorbed and suppressed it, he would be able to release the aura within. At this moment, under Lin Feng's control, the Chinquan Blood Shadow Beast's aura was only released in an area of 20 to 30 meters around him. No one else could feel it. So strong. Tang since swallowed his saliva. The rest of them were also in shock. Just now, it gave them the same feeling as when they were targeted by the Titan giant ape in the Stardow Great Forest. In an instant, everyone's foreheads were covered in sweat. Even though Flanders had reached the level of Soul Douluo, he still panicked. The master pressed his trembling hand down and then asked, "Little Feng, this soul bone of yours is tens of thousands of years old." "Not much. It should be around 80 to 90,000 years old," Lin Feng said casually. "Damn. So what Feng Gu said was true. I really don't like this soul bone," Ma Hongjun said in a daze. The others also sucked in a breath of cold air. Even if it was an 80,000-year soul bone, because it was a skull soul bone and Lin Feng was still young, this soul bone would definitely not be inferior to a 100,000-year leg bone when he became stronger in the future. "Feng Gu, I think you must be Mr. Destroy's son. Otherwise, he wouldn't be so good to you," Xiao Wu said with certainty. "That's right. I think so too." Dai Mubai nodded. Although the rest of them did not say anything, they were very sure of it. Lin Feng said grumpily, "Don't think too much. Just split it up." Out of these 3 soul bones, the left leg's acceleration soul bone is suitable for agility-type soul masters. Zhu Qing, take it. It suits you better. This right arm soul bone is of the fire element, so I can only give it to Fatty. You just happen to have a left arm soul bone, and now you have a right arm soul bone as well. You got a pair. With that, Lin Feng grabbed the 2 soul bones and threw them to the 2 of them. They didn't refuse anything. Both of them thanked him and accepted the soul bones. And the last skull bone, it increases spirit. Xiao Wu, Xiao Ao, Tang San, and Ning Rongrong can all use it. But the most suitable one is Xiao Wu. She has the seduction soul skill. It will become stronger when she uses it in the future. The skull bone that increased spirit could be used by anyone. After using it, one's strength would increase in all aspects. It was very powerful. Get to third brother. I don't need it, Xiao Wu quickly said. Ning Rongrong said, Xiao Wu, you don't have soul bone. This soul bone is very suitable for you. Why, I don't like this soul bone. It's too ugly, Xiao Wu said. She couldn't absorb soul bones yet. She had to wait until she reached rank 60. That was why she said that. No one believed this excuse. They just thought that Xiao Wu loved Tang San too much. That was why she made such a choice. Tang San was about to say something when Lin Feng directly pressed the soul bone into his hand. Okay, Xiao San, this soul bone is yours. Take good care of it. Tang San, he actually wanted to say thank you. But now that his mouth was blocked, it was fine even if he didn't say it. Xiao Wu couldn't use soul bones at the moment. Lin Feng deliberately said that Xiao Wu was the most suitable one. In fact, he wanted to give it to Tang San. Tang San also knew this. He didn't think of rejecting it at all. It would be too stupid to push such a thing away. Moreover, with his contribution, this thing should be taken by him. Lin Feng had taught him that modesty was a virtue. Modesty was also a virtue. However, there had to be a limit to everything. If one exceeded that limit, it was no longer a virtue. It was stupid. Hey. Tang San in the original work was really stupid like that. The master said that this skull was suitable for Ning Rongrong and Tang San. Then, Tang San wanted to give this skull to Ning Rongrong. In the end, if Tang San's idea was to give up on the soul bone, wouldn't he and Xiao Wu have fought this competition for nothing? If this wasn't stupid, then what was? Moreover, in the original work, those immortal herbs and elixirs were found by Tang San. If he didn't want a soul bone, he would be too stupid. Lin Feng only gave things to him when they were really useless to him. If they were useful, he would have used them long ago. Why would he give them away? However, Tang San was different. This soul bone was very useful to him, but he had to give it away. It was fundamentally different from Lin Feng's way of doing things. It seems that you have already distributed it. After seeing Tang San get the soul bone, Bibi Dong's voice also sounded. As soon as this voice sounded, everyone's eyes were on Bibi Dong. Some people were puzzled and didn't know what was going on. Dusty Heart, Douluo Bo, and Tang San all had solemn expressions at this time. Was the martial spirit palace finally going to make a move? It seemed that there was no way to be kind. They found that the members of the martial spirit palace began to appear around the square one after another. They were all powerful soul masters, and the weakest was a soul sage. They quietly surrounded the square. These people actually didn't know what to do next. They came after receiving the order. Only those high-level titled soul masters like Douluo knew the specific situation. Your Holiness, what is the meaning of this? Ning Fengji frowned and asked. In fact, he already had a rough idea in his mind. He was just asking the obvious at this time. Tang San is Tang Hao's son, and the Clear Sky sect is the martial spirit palace's archenemy. Therefore, this Tang San is also a wanted criminal of the martial spirit palace. Now, the martial spirit palace is arresting a wanted criminal. Do you have any doubts, Sect Master Ning? Bibi Dong's indifferent voice resounded in the square. Everyone's expression changed. The martial spirit palace was not invincible in the world yet. If they arrested someone without any reason, it would be too arrogant and would cause a lot of disgust. They had to have a good reason, and this reason had to be reasonable. Just like what Bibi Dong said now. The martial spirit palace was arresting Tang San because he was a wanted criminal of the martial spirit palace. Everyone knew that the Clear Sky sect and the martial spirit palace were enemies. There is nothing wrong with using this reason at this time. Lin Feng and Xiao Wu are sworn brothers with Tang San. They should be in cahoots with him. I hope that the others will not interfere with the martial spirit palace's arrest of wanted criminals. Bibi Dong's voice resounded in the square again. Now, everyone knew what Bibi Dong was going to do. The more foolish ones would think that Bibi Dong was arresting Tang San because of his identity. The smarter ones would see more clearly. They would know that Tang San was too talented and threatened the status of the martial spirit palace. That was why they were arresting him. Otherwise, Tang San would have been arrested when he first entered the martial spirit city because of his identity. Now that the tournament was over and even the soul bones had been distributed, it could only mean that Bibi Dong was too afraid of Tang San's talent. Pope, Tang San has already been expelled from the Clear Sky sect. Tang San doesn't belong to the Clear Sky sect, so he can't be considered a wanted criminal of the Martial Spirit Palace. Grandmaster suddenly stood up and looked directly into Bibi Dong's eyes. Grandmaster used to be someone that Bibi Dong liked. Now that Grandmaster was looking directly into his eyes, Bibi Dong felt a little pressured and avoided his gaze. Gue Mei shouted, "How dare you? How dare you be disrespectful to the Pope?" Grandmaster used to be an honorary elder of the Martial Spirit Palace. Gue Mei knew this. However, he had already been expelled from his position as an elder, and his elder token had been revoked. However, just as he was thinking about this, the Grandmaster took out an elder's token from his soul tool and said loudly, "I have the Martial Soul Hall's elder token. As an elder, I have the right to question the Pope's decision." Tang had given him this token back in Nodding City. Grandmaster was using it now. Douluo also came to the Shrek Academy. To be precise, he came to Lin Feng's side. He said, "Pope, we have to consider this at length." Ning Fengji also said, "Xiao San is from the Tang sect. He has nothing to do with the Clear Sky sect. I hope you will reconsider." What? Is the Seven Treasures Glazed sect going to protect a wanted criminal of the Martial Spirit Palace today? Bibi Dong glanced at Ning Fengji. Just as he finished speaking, 5 elders wearing the Martial Spirit Palace's elder attire appeared around the plaza. Including Yu Guan and Gue Mei, the Martial Spirit Palace had sent out 7 titled Douluo elders this time. In addition, there were so many soul sages, Soul, Douluo, and the Pope himself. This time, the Martial Spirit Palace had put in a lot of effort. They had brought out an unprecedented amount of strength. The appearance of these people made the Grandmaster and the others change their expressions. The Martial Spirit Palace had set up an inescapable net. With so many titled Douluo experts taking action, they felt that they were in great danger this time. Even Douluo and Ning Fengji's expressions changed. They felt that things were getting tricky. "We only want to catch Tang San and the others. We won't hurt your daughter. Sect Master Ning, please conduct yourself with dignity. Otherwise, the Seven Treasures Glazed sect will become the Martial Spirit Palace's enemy," Bibi Dong said to Ning Fengji. At this time, the Martial Spirit Palace displayed their strength. Their suppressive aura covered the entire plaza. Some of the weaker ones even found it difficult to breathe. After hearing Bibi Dong's words, Ning Fengji's expression turned serious. He never thought that Bibi Dong would be so stubborn. He directly raised the issue to the level of the sect. At this moment, Bibi Dong was asking him to make a very difficult choice. This choice was related to the safety of the entire Seven Treasures Glazed sect. If he chose to help Tang San, he would be standing on the opposite side of the Martial Spirit Palace. That being said, he could win the favor of Thanos and Tang San. On the other hand, if he chose to stand by and do nothing, he would not offend Tang San. However, he might lose the favor he had gained earlier. That being said, he wouldn't have to go against the Martial Spirit Palace. The sect would be fine, should he choose to help Tang San or not. If it weren't for his relationship with Thanos, Ning Fengji would have chosen to stand by and do nothing. However, because of Thanos, he found it difficult to make a choice. Right then, Ning Rongrong shouted, "Dad, help Feng Ge. The Martial Spirit Palace is so evil." His daughter's words woke Ning Fengji up. At this moment, his 2 choices were actually at a delicate balance point. From the perspective of the Seven Treasures Glazed sect, there wasn't much difference no matter which one he chose. However, Ning Rongrong's shout made Ning Fengji realize that he was not only the sect master of the Seven Treasures Glazed sect, but also a father. Therefore, he made a decision at this moment. "Pope, I think we can still discuss this matter." Bibi Dong smiled and said, "Sect Master Ning, I think you can still consider it. Otherwise, the sect master of the Seven Treasures Glazed sect might disappear directly today." At the end, the scepter in Bibi Dong's hand shook violently. In the next second, 9 soul rings appeared on Bibi Dong's body. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red. The first 8 soul rings were actually nothing. The main thing was her 9th soul ring, a 100,000-year soul ring. A huge pressure enveloped the entire place. Ning Fengji, who was closer, was directly suppressed to the point that he couldn't move. If not for Dusty Heart's soul power spreading over, Ning Fengji might not have been able to move at all. Elders, take down Tang San and the other 2. Let's see who dares to stop us. Bibi Dong shouted sternly. At the Pope's command, all the titled soul masters around the square moved. Soul Douluo and soul sages were also ready to attack to prevent their targets from escaping. Douluo actually wanted to take Lin Feng and the other 2 away. The 3 of them were Bibi Dong's targets. If he took them away, the others shouldn't be in any danger. However, the seal was too tight. Furthermore, Yuan was watching him. Douluo didn't have a chance to take them away. At this moment, the people from the Martial Soul Hall moved. Flanders and the others looked serious as they prepared to activate their Trinity Martial Soul Fusion skill. Douluo was also possessed by his martial soul, and his soul rings were revealed. He had to protect Flanders and the others by summoning the Golden Holy Dragon. Otherwise, according to the difference in strength, they wouldn't be able to defeat them even with Ning Fengji's support. At this moment, Tang San and the others were very nervous. Although they were geniuses, they were nothing in front of a real powerhouse. So what if they used a 7-man combination skill? They were still vulnerable in front of a titled soul master Douluo. Right now, there were several titled Douluo around them. There was nothing they could do apart from huddling together. Old Poison, I'll play with you today. Yuan smiled evilly and directly entangled Douluo. Ghost Charm at the side directly disappeared into the shadows, giving everyone a lot of pressure. Douluo's expression changed. These 2 people were approaching. He couldn't protect Flanders and the others. He could only go forward to block them. Otherwise, they would be in trouble. On the other side, Wing Daw, Qing Yin Daw, White Ape Daw, and the other titled soul masters who had surrounded the plaza directly rushed toward Tang San and the others. In front, Ning Fengji directly summoned the 7 Treasures Glazed Pagoda, wanting to enhance the masters and Douluo. However, just as his 7-colored light shot out, Bibi Dong's soul power swept over and blocked all his enhancement. How is this possible? Ning Fengji was shocked. After so long, this was the first time Ning Fengji encountered such a situation. His soul skill was blocked. It was unbelievable. However, Dusty Heart behind him was still affected by his soul skill. At this moment, Dusty Heart had become extremely powerful. However, he didn't look relaxed at all. He was full of seriousness. He also felt Bibi Dong's strength. Originally, Dusty Heart thought that Bibi Dong wasn't strong because of her young age. Even if she had a 100,000-year soul ring, Ning Fengji's enhancement should be able to defeat her easily. However, just now, Bibi Dong's ability to block Ning Fengji's soul skill showed that she had extremely good control of her soul power. Her soul power rank was probably very high too. It was at least rank 95. In this way, Dusty Heart believed that a rank 95 titled soul master with a 100,000-year soul ring, Daw with a 100,000-year soul ring, would be able to hold off Bibi Dong for a short period of time, even if he wasn't as strong as himself. This was difficult. Douluo was the only one on the Shrek Academy's side. Even if Flanders and the others were included, they only had 2 titled soul masters as strong as Douluo. Dusty Heart originally thought that with Ning Fengji's enhancement, they could be considered to have 6 titled soul masters as strong as Douluo. If they couldn't win, they could run. But now it seemed that Bibi Dong had directly trapped the 2 of them here, and Ning Fengji couldn't enhance others at all. This made things difficult. Bibi Dong looked at the 2's expressions and chuckled. Sect Master Ning, as long as the 2 of you stay put, I can guarantee that we will let bygones be bygones. In fact, Bibi Dong was still hiding a lot of her strength. She didn't want to reveal her second martial soul. In this case, she couldn't beat Dusty Heart, and she didn't want to show her true strength because of a fight, so it was a very good choice to use words to deter the 2 of them. At this moment, a low roar came from not far away. How dare you bully my disciple? This voice wasn't soft, and it was full of momentum. Everyone's attention was immediately attracted. It was the resting area of the Avengers. After the 7 people of the Avengers were defeated, they walked in. Because everyone's attention was on the Shrek Academy, no one cared about them. However, the Cardinals had been keeping an eye on them. Their mission was to suppress the 7 of them after the battle started. Wasn't that why the few of them had come over? And then, as soon as they came in, they saw Doctor Strange. Then they were sent flying with a slap, and at the same time, that low roar came out. In fact, this time was deliberately timed by Lin Feng. At this time, the battle situation was a little strange. Tang Hao didn't know what was going on, but he didn't come out. At this time, if Lin Feng didn't make some noise, Tang's sand might be taken away. Bibi Dong, your martial soul hall is very good. You actually have ideas about my disciple. Doctor Strange shouted, and the soul rings on his body directly appeared. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 red. Like Bibi Dong, he was also a titled Douluo with 100,000-year soul ring. This was something that no one expected. At this time, when they saw the red soul ring, they were all shocked. His martial soul was a big blood-red net. At this time, after summoning it, he directly threw it out and pulled the 3 titled Douluo to his side. With just one move, everyone could see some clues. This Doctor Strange strength was extremely strong. Bibi Dong's face also changed, but she didn't panic and directly let out a long whistle. In the next second, a long whistle came from the high mountain in response. This voice was full of energy and quickly rushed to the square. Douluo seemed to have thought of something, and his face changed drastically. It's the worship of the Martial Soul Hall. I didn't expect that even a worship would be involved. Today, Tang San will be captured. Yu Guan chuckled and attacked again. Originally, everyone had a glimmer of hope because of the appearance of Doctor Strange. He showed his invincible power and pulled the 3 titled Douluo to his side. At this time, they were entangled together. But now, a worship of the Martial Soul Hall had joined the battle, and the situation of the battlefield was about to be reversed in an instant. The worship hall was actually not a secret. After the Soul Masters of the Martial Soul Hall reached rank 96 and above, they could choose to enter the worship hall. After becoming a worship, they would usually concentrate on comprehending the higher levels and would not participate in some of the battles of the Martial Soul Hall. Therefore, under normal circumstances, no matter what happened, no one would think that a worship would be involved. But now, a worship of such a powerful titled Douluo had joined the battle. Douluo and the others were a little desperate because of this. However, Tang San and Xiao Wu didn't panic at all. Even Dai Mubai and the others weren't very nervous. Because just now, Lin Feng had told them that Mr. Destroy was nearby and would appear in an emergency. They believed that as long as Mr. Destroy showed up, the Martial Soul Hall would be crushed. Therefore, they didn't panic at all. On the contrary, they were quite relaxed. Not far away, Flanders's golden holy dragon was fighting against 2 elders at the same time with the help of Ning Rongrong's full power. At the moment, Douluo from a Martial Soul Hall was sneaking toward Tang San. In the dark, Ghost Douluo was trying to take advantage of this opportunity to go around the golden holy dragon and capture Lin Feng and Tang San. That worship of the Martial Soul Hall had also arrived at the plaza. Bibi Dong shouted, "Master Ghost Leopard, please capture Lin Feng and the other 2 wanted criminals." Ghost Leopard Douluo was the 6th worship of the Martial Soul Hall, a rank 96 agility type titled battle pet warrior. He was very powerful. The Ghost Leopard Douluo's original mission was to hold Doctor Strange back. However, there were already 3 titled Douluo holding him back. It was better for the Ghost Leopard Douluo to capture Tang San and the others first. Yes, Ghost Leopard Douluo didn't say anything else. He nodded and went straight toward Tang San. A little leopard and a little devil. How dare you hurt my son? A low and domineering voice suddenly sounded, as if it had exploded in the air. You're just a little leopard and a little devil. How dare you hurt my son? Along with the shout, a tall black figure appeared. He was wearing ragged clothes and was holding a sledgehammer in his hand. At this moment, he directly smashed toward Ghost Leopard. Bang! With a muffled sound, huge waves of soul power collided. In the blink of an eye, the ghost leopard and the ghost Douluo were both sent flying. Tang Hao had appeared. Chapter 385. Dad, is it really you? The moment he saw Tang Hao, Tang San's eyes were filled with tears. It had been 7 years. Ever since he left the Holy Spirit Village, Tang San hadn't seen Tang Hao again. Now that they met again, Tang San burst into tears. However, Tang Hao didn't have time to say anything to Tang San, because when he appeared, Bibi Dong's gaze instantly fell on him. He didn't dare to be distracted. Tang Hao, how dare you come out to court death? Bibi Dong shouted, her tone full of anger. She had thought about Tang Hao's appearance before. She was not too surprised when she found out that it was Tang Hao. After all, so what if Tang Hao came? Now that there were 9 titled law from the Martial Spirit Hall, there were dozens of soul sages and soul Douluo around. It was easy to enter, but difficult to leave. However, because of Tang Hao's appearance, the Martial Spirit Hall elders who were originally attacking quickly retreated and gathered together. Even the 3 elders who were originally fighting on Dr. Strange's side quickly retreated. Hao Qian Douluo was the #1 genius in the world of soul masters. Back then, the Martial Spirit Hall had sent several people to surround and kill him, but in the end, 2 of them were killed. From this, it could be seen how fierce his combat strength was. Therefore, at this moment, they were very careful, afraid that they would be killed by his hammer. In fact, the reason why Tang Hao was fierce was mainly because he had extremely high control of soul power and had created several extremely powerful self-created soul skills. The disorder-splitting wind hammer technique and the great Summer hammer that connected 9 soul rings were all manifestations of extremely high control of soul power. Especially the great Summer hammer, when the soul rings exploded, it could even directly increase the power of the soul skill by several times, close to a martial soul fusion skill. Therefore, Tang Hao was especially fierce, even comparable to Lin Feng. It shouldn't be a problem for him to fight one against 4 Martial Spirit Hall elders who were around rank 93. In the original work, he fought 1 against 7 because he was attacking the Pontiff's Palace, which was the face of the Martial Spirit Hall. Bibi Dong and the others couldn't dodge and could only take this blow head-on. Otherwise, if Tang Hao destroyed the Pontiff's Hall, the Martial Spirit Hall would lose face. It was precisely because of this that Tang Hao was able to seize the opportunity to escape. Now that so many soul masters had sealed off the plaza, it would be difficult for Tang Hao to escape. Bibi Dong, you're still not strong enough to avenge your teacher today. Tang Hao looked at the 9 people in front of him without the slightest hint of fear on his face. As he spoke, his soul rings quickly appeared on his body. Just like Dr. Strange and Bibi Dong's, there were 2 yellow, 2 purple for black, and 1 red. Today, the 3rd titled Douluo with 100,000-year soul ring had appeared. Tang Hao didn't waste any more words. He knew that things would change if he delayed. After his soul ring appeared, he immediately unleashed his martial soul true body. You have 9 titled battle pet warriors, Douluo. No wonder the Martial Spirit Palace is the most powerful force on the continent. But so what? You can't stop me today. As he shouted, the clear sky hammer in Tang Hao's hand rose into the air. Following a flash of black light, the clear sky hammer grew in the wind and instantly became a huge hammer that was 100 meters long. The hammer's head was like a small mountain in the air. To be honest, this was the largest martial soul true body that Lin Feng had seen so far. Tang Hao's control of his soul power was very high. In fact, he was even better than Lin Feng. After all, he had lived for so many years, and there was still a gap between him and Lin Feng. Just as everyone's attention was focused on Tang Hao, the 100,000-year soul ring on his body suddenly lit up, and the entire clear sky hammer was dyed red. What a Pontiff's Hall! Today, I'll destroy your Pontiff's Hall. Ha ha! Tang Hao laughed arrogantly. After that, the huge hammer smashed directly toward the Pontiff's Hall behind the plaza. At this moment, a huge amount of soul power filled the entire plaza. Soul masters below the soul sage level were suppressed to the point that they couldn't move. The air seemed to have frozen. Tang Hao, how dare you? After discovering Tang Hao's intentions, Bibi Dong shouted sternly. Originally, when she saw Tang Hao make his move, she thought that he was overestimating himself and wanted to fight 9 people alone. Now, it seemed that he wasn't stupid. Guiju and Gui Bao, you guys stop these people. The rest of you, follow me to block. Bibi Dong shouted loudly and led the other 5 elders to meet the huge hammer to block this attack. Gui Bao directly charged toward Tang Hao. Gui Dao and Zhu Dao called out to the Soul Dao, Soul Sages, and so on, ready to block everyone. That's right. In order to prevent any unforeseen events, Bibi Dong directly wanted to block everyone. At this moment, Tang Hao's full-strength attack collided with Bibi Dong's group of 6. Boom! A loud sound rang out, as if the heavens were punishing them. The entire martial spirit city trembled from this loud sound. Those soul masters below the soul sage level directly fainted. The weaker ones nearby were even seriously injured. Sect Master Ning, come out, Tang Hao shouted. At the same time, he retracted his giant hammer and smashed it towards Gui Bao. The golden holy dragon controlled by Douluo and the others also faced Yuguan and Gui Mei. In fact, Tang Hao should have left the moment Tang San won the championship. When the elders of the martial spirit hall surrounded them, it was actually too late. However, the more he looked at Tang San, the more he looked like Ian, so he fell into his memories. By the time he came back to his senses, the elders had already surrounded him. At that moment, Tang Hao knew that things were bad. If he rushed out directly, it would definitely not work. What he wanted to do was to sneak attack the Pontiff's palace and force Bibi Dong and the others to return to defense. Then, he would shout for Douluo to take Tang San and the others away from afar. However, that was not safe. He might fall into extreme danger. At the same time, it was safer for Douluo to save Tang San and the others. This was the last choice, but at that time, Tang Hao could only think of this plan. Fortunately, Dr. Strange made a move later on, which gave him the idea of directly making a move. When the time came, he would rescue Ning Fengji and Dusty Heart. With Ning Fengji's buff, they would have the strength to fight. And now, the plan was going smoothly. When he forced Bibi Dong and the others away and then faced Ghost Leopard, Dusty Heart also took the opportunity to bring Ning Fengji to Shrek Academy. Lin Feng was watching everything unfold before his eyes. Now, he was secretly creating clones of himself and merging with those people. At this moment, the chaotic battle was about to begin. He was secretly setting up a plan on both sides, ready to fight at any time to gain experience. At this moment, if Bibi Dong and the others had too much of an advantage, his identity as Thanos would appear. And if Tang Hao and the others wanted to run, then sorry, Dr. Strange would make a move and stop them. That's right. Lin Feng wanted to create a character for Dr. Strange that loved to fight. He would not stand on anyone's side. No matter who you were, he would fight. It was not easy to plan for so long and make a group of people fight. How could they run away at the last minute? That would not do. He had to collect protection fees. All the experts present today, not only titled Douluo, Soul Sages, and even the unconscious Soul Emperor, Lin Feng's clones would have to be pulled up and beaten up. Only by earning so much experience points would he be able to live up to his expectations. Just as Lin Feng was thinking about this, the situation on the field quickly changed. Bibi Dong and the others blocked Tang Hao's attack. Their faces were slightly red, but they were fine. At this moment, they were standing in front of the field. Ghost Leopard was hammered by Tang Hao again. When he saw Dusty Heart and Ning Fengji coming over, he did not dare to stay any longer and quickly retreated. Ghost Douluo and Chrysanthemum Douluo were entangled with Douluo and the Golden Holy Dragon. There were many Soul Douluo and Soul Sages on that side. With their help, Douluo and Flanders were suppressed. Fortunately, Ning Fengji rushed over at this moment. The moment he landed, he unleashed his government soul skill. Flanders's and Douluo's strength sword, temporarily stabilizing the situation. At the same time, Ning Fengji's soul skill shone on Tang Hao's body, making him feel a little better. In fact, Tang Hao had suffered serious injuries in that battle. Even after so many years, his injuries had not healed. Just now, he had fought 1 against 5, and the blood in his body was surging. His old injuries almost relapsed. Fortunately, Ning Fengji came over and temporarily suppressed the surging blood in his body. Furthermore, with Ning Fengji's buff, Tang Hao felt that he should be able to fight for a while. "Hao Qingdeluo, I've heard a lot about you." Ning Fengji came to Tang Hao's side and smiled. "Thank you, Sect Master Ning and Qingdeluo, for your help. I can't thank you enough." Tang Hao cupped his hands politely to the two of them. "Don't mention it. Rong Rong is also in the Shrek Academy. I can't leave her alone," Ning Fengji said. Although he could still smile, Ning Fengji knew that the situation was very serious. If he could not escape quickly, he would be finished when his soul power was exhausted. "Prepare to break out. If I don't have enough soul power, it will be dangerous." Ning Fengji's face was solemn. "That's right. We have to leave quickly." Dusty Heart also nodded. Tang Hao glanced at Tang San, who wanted to come over, and then said, "I'll use my full strength again later. I should be able to hold back half of them. You guys take the opportunity to take your people and leave quickly." At this time, on the other side, Dr. Strange dragged 2 title battle pet warriors over to fight with Douluo. If one observed carefully, they would find that those 2 people had not fought with Dr. Strange before. Tang Hao could not figure out what this guy was thinking. He didn't communicate with them, but he was still helping them. At least he was fighting the people from the Martial Soul Hall. "Dad, aren't you coming with us?" Tang San asked anxiously. Tang Hao's words meant that he was going to stay behind to cover the retreat. This was undoubtedly the most dangerous situation. He was very worried. "I'll catch up soon," Tang Hao said to Tang San, then said loudly, "Get ready. Leave when you have a chance." With that said, he didn't have time to pay attention to Tang San. Tang Hao took action again because Ghost Leopard and the others were attacking again. Dusty Heart also took action. Otherwise, Tang Hao would not have been able to stop them all by himself. "Today, none of you can escape," Bibi Dong shouted. The scepter in her hand glowed brightly. As a matter of fact, Bibi Dong hadn't exerted her full strength yet. She was only playing a supporting role. She had to hide for a while longer. Otherwise, if she showed too much strength, the 2 empires would directly oppose the Martial Soul Hall. By then, things would be terrible. After all, it was not realistic for the Martial Soul Hall to rule the continent. Apart from the influence of Soul Masters, they were not popular at all. That was to say, in the eyes of the common people, they only recognized the empires and did not care about the Martial Soul Hall. Therefore, it was not the best time for the Martial Soul Hall to rule. They had to wait for a few more years until the Martial Soul Hall had infiltrated the common people. That would be the best time, but at the moment, the Martial Soul Hall had the absolute advantage. It would be fine even if Bibi Dong didn't use her full strength. At this moment, under the radiance of the scepter, the strength of the elders of the Martial Soul Hall increased a little. Especially Ghost Leopard, who had been hammered twice by Tang Hao, was furious. At this moment, he was going all out, entangling Tang Hao's hammer. Tang Hao was even fiercer. With the support of Ning Fengji, not only did he entangle Ghost Leopard, but he also entangled Qingyu and Douluo. As for Dusty Heart, it was also 1 against 2. Wing Douluo and White Douluo found him. At this moment, the Martial Soul Hall's titled Douluo and Bibi Dong, who was a powerful existence with 100,000-year soul ring. What Tang Hao was thinking at this moment was to find an opportunity to beat back a few people in an instant, and then buy time for the others to escape. Perhaps he would die here, but to be honest, as long as Tang San could survive, he would have no regrets. Tang Hao saw that Tang San was a genius. He firmly believed that as long as Tang San didn't die, he would definitely avenge him. At this moment, on the side of Shrek's 7 monsters, Tang San said anxiously, "Feng Ge, when will Mr. Destroy come out? My dad can't hold on much longer." When the soul power exploded just now, Lin Feng blocked the impact for them, so no one fainted. At this moment, the others were no longer relaxed, and their faces were full of anxiety. After all, Bibi Dong was rushing towards them, and the others were also entangled. It was very dangerous. Lin Feng also knew that the situation was a little tilted. The backup plan he had arranged earlier was about to be used. Thinking of this, he pointed at the Avengers and said with a smile, "Look, isn't Mr. Destroy here?" Everyone looked in the direction of his finger, and they didn't know when Thanos' figure appeared outside the square. The main thing was that there were more than 30 people behind him. They were all wearing similar clothes with the word Marvel on them. The others didn't feel anything when they saw these people, but Xue Qinghe, who was pretending to be unconscious at the VIP stand, was shocked. Those were actually all from the Marvel family. Then their strength, as if in response to Xue Qinghe's thoughts, Thanos came to the square in the next second. Behind him, the 30 or so people all released their soul rings. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 black. 8 perfect soul rings. These people were all strong people on the level of soul Douluo. That powerful aura instantly attracted the attention of everyone present. Flanders, Douluo, and the others were ecstatic. Mr. Destroy is here. This won't be a big problem. Ning Rongrong and the others were even more excited. When Mr. Destroy is here, he will definitely beat the Martial Spirit Palace until they piss their pants. Ning Fengji and Tang Hao also breathed a sigh of relief. At the same time, they were a little puzzled. Wasn't Thanos a loner? What was going on with these people? On Bibi Dong's side, he was shocked and angry at the same time. Were the Soul Masters patrolling on the city wall and inside the city fools? Thanos led more than 30 people to the front of the Pontiff's palace, and no one noticed? No, it shouldn't be that they didn't notice. There must be another reason. Bibi Dong wasn't stupid. He quickly realized that these people shouldn't have come in from the outside, but had already arrived in the city. Otherwise, it would be too ridiculous if no one noticed them. And just now, no one noticed how these 30 people appeared. It could only be said that they had a special hiding method. In this case, things are difficult. At this moment, the situation was very good for the Martial Spirit Palace. This group of people couldn't escape at all. There were more than a dozen Soul Douluo and more than 40 Soul Sages waiting outside. If this group of people wanted to escape, they would definitely be stopped. But now, more than 30 Soul Douluo had appeared, and Thanos was an extremely powerful titled Douluo. Things are going to be difficult. More importantly, there was a force on the continent of Douluo that had more than 30 Soul Douluo, and the Martial Spirit Palace didn't know anything about it. Soul Douluo could hide, but what about titled Douluo? Just the thought of it was enough to make one feel terrified. Bibi Dong was not afraid of this force's strength, but that she didn't know anything about it. The Sea God's Island was an extremely powerful force. There were several titled Douluo and many Soul Douluo, but Bibi Dong knew about this place. She had a rough idea. She didn't know anything about the force behind Thanos, and the unknown often made people afraid. At this moment, Slayer Lord was leading more than 30 Soul Douluo. His aura was monstrous as he rushed toward the plaza. If some of the weaker Soul Masters saw this scene, they would probably be so scared that they would lose their ability to perform. In fact, among the 30 or so people, only the 6 or 7 people at the front looked normal. The other 20 or so people at the back all looked a little dazed. Lin Feng couldn't control so many people at the same time. He could only switch between them with his divine sense, and barely control them at the same time. This way, they might not be able to perform well, but it didn't matter. As long as they could fight with these Soul Douluo and Soul Sages, they would still be able to gain experience points. Lin Feng summoned these people mainly to fight with those Soul Masters below Soul Douluo. At the same time, he wanted the Martial Spirit Hall to be afraid of the situation on the continent. This way, the Martial Spirit Hall shouldn't dare to do anything big for a few years, and he could take advantage of this time to earn experience points on the continent. How dare you attack the people of my Marvel family? Martial Spirit Palace, how dare you? Slayer Overlord came directly to the square and shouted in a low voice. After saying that, he rushed to Doctor Strange's side, and a long rod appeared in his hand. He easily injured the 2 Soul Douluo and trapped them. The situation on the battlefield was reversed in an instant. Originally, the Martial Spirit Hall had a big advantage. Now, as soon as Thanos appeared, he trapped the two Martial Spirit Hall elders. At the same time, his subordinates also joined the battle, reducing a lot of pressure on Douluo and Flanders. Douluo laughed and said, "You old chrysanthemum, I told you not to provoke the Shrek Academy. Mr. Destroy will deal with you. Now you know how powerful Mr. Destroy is." Yuan's face was very ugly. He wasn't in the mood to talk, but his attacks became more fierce. Douluo felt the pressure and didn't have time to talk anymore. He could only fight with all his strength. Marvel family? Bibi Dong remembered this name. However, the current situation was not good for the Martial Spirit Hall. She thought for a while and suddenly let out a strange scream. At the same time, above the Pope's palace at the top of the mountain, there was the even more noble Palace Douluo. The Martial Spirit Hall's high priest, Douluo, was the master of the Douluo Palace. He was originally cultivating, but when he heard this sound, he suddenly opened his eyes. Something big happened in the Martial Spirit City? Bibi Dong asked him to make a move? That's right, Bibi Dong's special scream was used to ask Douluo to make a move. It could only be used when the Martial Spirit Hall was in danger. Today, according to the situation, the Continental Elite Soul Master Academy tournament should be taking place. What could happen? Although he was confused, Douluo still rushed outside. He and Bibi Dong didn't get along well, but that was because of personal reasons. In front of the Martial Spirit Hall, Douluo cared more about the Martial Spirit Hall. Furthermore, because of the shameful things his son had done, Douluo felt that he owed Bibi Dong. When Bibi Dong became the Pope, it had a lot to do with his secret support. However, he had never said these things to Bibi Dong. Bibi Dong hated the Qian family to the core. If it wasn't for the future of the Martial Spirit Hall, she wouldn't have called Douluo. Who was she calling? In the square, everyone was puzzled when they saw Bibi Dong scream. Even Lin Feng was a little puzzled. Could be that Bibi Dong wanted to call Douluo out? Weren't the two of them at odds? Just as he was thinking about this, on the top of the mountain, an old man with an outstanding temperament stood in the air and then suddenly attacked the square. This scene made Thanos' face change slightly. Douluo, this guy really came out. Damn it. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Bibi Dong's face. The reason why she called Douluo out was that she only had one purpose, and that was to capture everyone from the Marvel family. Such a powerful force that no one noticed under her nose was too terrifying. It was a great threat to the position of the Martial Spirit Hall. She had to figure it out. Everyone retreat. At this moment, Thanos roared and directly attacked Bibi Dong, Ghost Leopard, and the others. The stick in his hand became extremely long, and the attack range included a group of people. At the same time, Doctor Strange, who was his external avatar, flew up into the sky and faced Douluo. Lin Feng actually had a plan before and expected Douluo to appear. He also had a complete response plan, so at this moment, he was just a little surprised and didn't panic at all. Chapter 386. The plan was simple. The 1,000 Dao flow was strong, so Lin Feng's main body would not risk his life to fight it head-on. However, his avatar could give a try. As long as there was experience, it didn't matter if his avatar died. Of course, in order to prevent himself from being instantly killed, his main body still had to plunder the experience points from Bibi Dong and the others. At the same time, Lin Feng had hidden quite a few avatars on Tang San and the others. After they left Martial Spirit City, Lin Feng would turn his avatar into an elder of the Martial Spirit Palace and start hunting down those people to earn experience points. Originally, the best situation would be to take all the experience points in the plaza and then return home to find their own mothers. After that, Lin Feng began to challenge titled Douluo and Soul Do all over the continent. He wanted to earn experience points for a period of time so that he could obtain a 1,000,000-year soul ring. Now that the 1,000 Dao flow had appeared, he could only give up some stability and take some risks. Of course, with the risks came high rewards. Whether or not he could grasp it depended on himself. At the moment, it would take about 10 seconds for the 1,000 Dao flow to arrive. Lin Feng wanted to take advantage of this time to quickly obtain the experience points from the titled Douluo of the Martial Spirit Palace. After a loud shout, The rod in Thanos' hand became thick and long, covering the sky. He suddenly swung it forward, directly enveloping BB Dong, Ghost Leopard, and the others. At the same time, he released all the soul skills of the Chinkoan Blood Shadow B-Skull. The power of spatial imprisonment and Blood Fiend instantly enveloped the space in front of them. These people were unable to care about anything else for a short period of time. 1 against 5, and it was a 1 against 5 head-on. With just this move, Thanos' strength was much stronger than Tang Hao's. At this moment, Tang Hao, Dusty Heart, and the others took this opportunity to quickly run outside. They recognized the Thousand Dao flow and knew that they were no match for it. At this moment, escaping was the best choice. Otherwise, when the Thousand Dao flow arrived, it would be difficult for them to escape. With the people of the Marvel family holding them back, and Thanos showing his might, for a while, the people of the Martial Spirit Palace were all blocked. Bang! Thanos' staff directly smashed into the 5 people. For a moment, soul power surged, and its might was boundless. Originally, Thanos' Lord's Control technique could control a tidal Douluo to death. However, it was unleashed on 5 tidal Douluo at the same time, including Gue Leopard's Consecrated Elder and BB Dong. Under the collision of the 5 people's soul power, Thanos' soul skill only controlled them for less than a second, and then he completely broke free. Furthermore, the combined attack of the 5 of them crashed into Thanos, directly injuring him. However, Thanos did not panic at all. His life force circulated and his injuries were instantly healed. Damn it, none of you can leave today. BB Dong roared and unleashed his martial soul, true body. Since he had already called out the Thousand Dao flow, it would be too embarrassing if he did not stay behind. At this moment, BB Dong could no longer hide. She had to make them stay behind. Her 7th soul ring shone brightly, and the projection of a spider appeared in the air. In the end, it solidified and cast a spider web towards the plaza. BB Dong saw that Tang Hao and Thanos were fighting 1 against 5, 1 against 9, and so on. She did not want to be outdone. She wanted to make everyone stay with her own strength. At the side, Ghost Leopard also unleashed his martial soul true body. His entire body turned into an almost transparent leopard, and his aura rose sharply. If it were Tang Hao, he might have been beaten to death in an instant. However, Thanos was not Tang Hao. He activated the wind invisibility on his wind dragon left leg bone, and his entire body turned into a gust of wind. Furthermore, the soul power in his body surged wildly, and this gust of wind instantly covered half of the plaza. In the next second, countless tornadoes appeared and enveloped everyone from the Martial Spirit Palace. Tidal Douluo, Soul Douluo, and Soul Sages were all trapped inside. At the same time, a small flame was released in the middle. 4th soul skill, Blazing Sea of Fire. Ever since his 4th soul ring broke through to the 100,000-year level, Lin Feng had not truly unleashed his full strength. Today, he wanted to test its power. Following a flash of red light, this spark intertwined with the surrounding tornadoes. The wind helped the fire. In an instant, half of the plaza was turned into a sea of fire. "How dare you!" In the distance, Qian Douluo shouted. His eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. This was in front of the Pontiff's Palace in the center of Martial Spirit City. How dare someone set fire to the mountain? Damn it! BB Dong and the others' expressions changed drastically. Thanos' soul skills were too strong. Whether it was the wind or the fire, they were all ridiculously strong. At this moment, the fire and wind had spread across half of the plaza. The high-end fighting strength of the Martial Spirit Palace was included. The tidal Douluo were still fine as they could resist the attacks, but the Soul Douluo and Soul Sages could die if they were left alone. All elders, save them! BB Dong shouted and ordered all the tidal Douluo to save them. They had no choice but to save them. This fire was too strong. Soul Douluo probably wouldn't even last a minute. It would be good if the Soul Sages could last half a minute. If they did not save them, more than half of the higher-ups of the Martial Spirit Palace would be wiped out. This Thanos, this Marvel family, really ruined the plans of the Martial Spirit Palace. He originally thought that Thanos was a hidden expert, but it seemed that his initial analysis was completely wrong. At this moment, BB Dong completely hated this Marvel family. While the elders of the Martial Spirit Palace were saving people, Thanos Overlord was still persevering, continuing to entangle with these people and fighting for a long time. As for his clones, they were also looking for soul masters from the Martial Soul Hall to fight. At the same time, Doctor Strange also faced Douluo. This old fellow was too ferocious. From afar, the space around Doctor Strange was imprisoned. At the same time, Douluo punched over. Thanos' actions had completely angered Douluo. At this moment, he released his angel martial soul, and its pressure filled the entire martial spirit city. He did not release his soul ring, because that would only make the two empires more fearful. Even if he did not use his soul ring, just the power of his martial soul was extremely terrifying. With just one punch, Doctor Strange felt that he could not dodge and could only take it head-on. This feeling, it was as if he was directly locked on and could not dodge at all. Is this the power of another level? It feels so magical. Although he was shocked, Doctor Strange's hands did not slow down. He activated his sixth soul skill and thunder rumbled. The moment Douluo punched over, a bolt of lightning struck down from the sky and instantly arrived above his head. The power of thunder was like a heavenly punishment, forcing Douluo to take a step back. You have some ability. When did such a person appear in the world of soul masters? Douluo was stunned and asked. Of course, his hands did not stop moving, and he punched towards Doctor Strange again. The latter did not answer and used his full strength to fight with Douluo. At this moment, BB Dong was already putting out the fire in the square. For safety, Lin Feng's main body did not dare to stay any longer after seeing that Tang San and the others had left. He directly teleported and disappeared from the square. At the same time, those clones quickly began to retreat and disappeared around the corner. As for the 7 members of the Avengers, they had disappeared when the competition began. The few cardinals who were watching them had long lost track of them. At this moment, the only one left in the square was Lin Feng's incarnation, Doctor Strange. Douluo seemed to want to see his strength and did not use his full strength. However, the surrounding space was sealed. The Martial Spirit Palace wanted to capture him alive. That's right, this was also BB Dong's current thought. Tang San and the others had run away. Even if there was a threat in the future, it was a matter for the future. The force behind this Avengers was the Marvel family. This force was the most important thing for the Martial Spirit Palace to deal with at the moment. Thanos and Doctor Strange were 2 powerful title battle pet warriors. They also had such a genius under their command and a large number of souls under Douluo. This Marvel family must be very strong. If the Martial Spirit Palace did not figure out, how could they be at ease? Now, this Doctor Strange was considered a high-level member of the Marvel family. As long as they captured him and interrogated him, they would be able to get a lot of information. The reason why BB Dong did not try to stop the others from escaping was mainly because they still had Doctor Strange in their hands. Douluo trapped him. At this time, the other elders also rescued people and flew into the sky. Doctor Strange was surrounded. As far as the Martial Spirit Palace was concerned, there was no way he could escape. If he could escape from the encirclement of so many titled battle pet warriors, the Martial Spirit Palace would lose face. Doctor Strange, give up. Stop your futile struggle. As long as you tell us everything you know about the Marvel family, the Martial Spirit Palace will spare your life. You once shouted. At this moment, Doctor Strange was undoubtedly making a futile struggle. It would be better for him to surrender. Doctor Strange chuckled and ignored them. He continued to fight with Douluo. He could tell that Douluo was deliberately testing his strength. That was why they did not use their full strength. At the same time, they also wanted to capture him alive. This was good. He could fight for a while longer and gain more experience points. As for capturing him, dream on. As he thought about this, Doctor Strange expanded the range of his lightning attack and enveloped all the titled Douluo around him. Is this guy crazy? Douluo was already exhausted. If it weren't for the fact that Douluo wanted to see his strength and capture him alive, he would have killed him already. How dare he provoke a group of people at this time? Was he courting death? Although they thought so, they did not dare to counterattack. Bibi Dong just said that he wanted to capture him alive. At this moment, everyone could only retreat. However, as soon as they retreated, that guy followed up. Even the Douluo's attack was only a casual defense. Dr. Strange's clone was left behind mainly because he wanted to achieve two effects. The first was to gain experience points and estimate the Douluo's strength. From the looks of it now, this fellow was very strong. Even without using any soul skills or soul rings, he was still able to easily suppress him. There was an inexplicable force that suppressed him. If he used weapons or soul skills, this clone would have died. It could be said that the gap between Lin Feng and Douluo was quite big. It was so big that it was ridiculous. Lin Feng estimated that if Douluo went all out, his main body and clone would be instantly killed. Fortunately, his main body did not stay for long. Otherwise, it would have been very dangerous. The second plan was to stop Douluo from chasing after Tang San and the others. This was obviously achieved. Tang San and the others had safely escaped, and Douluo did not chase after them. Actually, it was fine if he did not stop Douluo, because he did not want to chase after them. Although Bibi Dong called him out, Douluo would not go too far away from the martial spirit hall. This was because he had to protect the angel god's inheritance and guard against Bibi Dong. Brat, are you really courting death? Douluo was surprised when he realized that Dr. Strange dared to provoke others. You're the one courting death. Dr. Strange chuckled and attacked even more fiercely. Space was sealed, and his control-type soul skills could not control so many people. He could not escape, so Dr. Strange only wanted to fight more fiercely. Your Majesty the Pope, this guy is resisting too fiercely. Should we attack? Guei asked. The few of them went up to surround him. Logically speaking, when they saw so many titled Douluo surrounding him, he would definitely surrender in order to survive. However, Dr. Strange did not surrender at all. He charged wherever there were more people as if he did not care about his life. They were not confident that they could capture him alive, which was very troublesome. Bibi Dong frowned. It was already good enough that she called Douluo out. It was impossible for her to order him now. Among everyone present, only Douluo had the ability to capture him alive. The others, including herself, would find it difficult to succeed. Just as she was thinking about this, Dr. Strange attacked even more fiercely. He was fighting with no regard for his life, crazily charging towards them. This scene made Douluo frown. Was this guy really not afraid of death? Where did this person from a Marvel family come from? Why was he fighting so fiercely? Forget it. Let's not think about it. Let's capture him. We'll talk about it after we capture him. With that thought, a black soul ring appeared on Douluo's body. Then, a black light suddenly shone. In the next second, the wings on his back suddenly burst open. Feathers flew all over the sky and instantly wrapped around Dr. Strange. There was no way to dodge at all. The speed was too fast. In an instant, Dr. Strange was surrounded by these feathers. At this point, Lin Feng also knew that there was nothing he could do. At this moment, without saying anything, the soul power in his body quickly condensed and condensed crazily. In a short moment, an extremely terrifying soul power fluctuation came from his body. Bibi Dong's expression changed drastically. Everyone retreat. He's going to self-destruct. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed drastically, and they all retreated. Lunatic. Douluo also cursed in a low voice and quickly retreated. In the instant that everyone retreated, enormous soul force undulations spread out from the center of the layer of feathers. Boom! A loud bang resounded throughout the entire martial spirit city, and a soul power storm swept out rapidly. Chapter 387. Dr. Strange's self-destruction was extremely powerful. Needless to say, the sound not only resounded throughout the city, but even Tang San and the others, who were escaping outside the martial spirit city, could hear it. It was mainly due to the damage caused by the explosion. The few title Douluo who were close to it were all seriously injured, and those who ran fast were also slightly injured. Fortunately, they weren't seriously injured and would be fine after some rest. As for the low-level soul masters nearby, they had already been taken care of, especially the representatives of the Douluo Empire. They were moved into the city by the martial spirit palace and were not injured. As for the people from the Douluo Empire, they seemed to have all escaped. Prince Xue Qinghe was even taken away by Dusty Heart, leaving only the people from the Douluo Empire. These were all trivial matters. The scary thing was that Bibi Dong couldn't understand why Dr. Strange would self-destruct. No one from the Martial Spirit Palace wanted to kill him, but he self-destructed? Did he not value his own life anymore? It was not easy to cultivate to the level of a title Douluo. Usually, title Douluo wouldn't kill each other if there was no deep hatred between them. At this moment, Dr. Strange's self-destruction really surprised everyone. At the same time, Bibi Dong was also very shocked. What kind of power was this Marvel family? What kind of charm did they have to make a powerful title Douluo choose to self-destruct in order to not betray them? To be honest, a title Douluo was willing to give up his life to hide power. Just thinking about this made Bibi Dong shudder. Because the title Douluo of the Martial Spirit Palace couldn't reach such a level. When Ing Luan was caught last time, he didn't self-destruct. After being threatened with poison by Douluo, he spilled everything. In comparison, this Marvel family was definitely a big enemy of the Martial Spirit Palace. They were too cohesive. On the side, Qian Lu saw Dr. Strange self-destruct and was stunned. However, he didn't say anything. He looked at Bibi Dong and the other elders and flew directly to the top of the mountain. He wouldn't interfere in the affairs of the Martial Spirit Palace. Now that there was nothing else, he would go back. As for the Marvel family, unless the other party attacked Martial Spirit City, he wouldn't make a move. After Qian Dao Lu left, the healing-type soul masters of the Martial Soul Hall came over to treat the elders. An hour later, in the main hall of the Pontiff's Palace, Bibi Dong held a meeting here, and all the soul masters above the level of Soul Douluo came. Everyone wore solemn expressions on their faces. On one hand, the Martial Soul Hall had been thoroughly humiliated today. None of the dozens of Soul Douluo and a powerful titled Douluo had been discovered, and they had managed to sneak up to the Supreme Pontiff's Palace. Then, in front of a group of elders, he set a fire and a gust of wind to burn down half of the mountain. Now, the area in front of the Pope's palace was completely bare. Although someone had gone to deal with it, it was obviously not something that could be done in a short time. The Martial Spirit Palace had really lost its face. On the other hand, a mysterious and powerful Marvel family had suddenly appeared on the mainland. This was something they had never noticed before. This made everyone feel great pressure. And there was one more thing. They had now completely offended the Seven Treasures Glazed sect. In the Douluo Empire, 2 of the 3 upper sects had become enemies. The remaining Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon clan probably didn't have a good impression of the Martial Spirit Palace. Under such circumstances, the Martial Spirit Palace had to deal with it properly. Otherwise, the entire Douluo Empire might boycott the Martial Spirit Palace. From today onwards, the Martial Spirit Palace will start a thorough investigation of this Marvel family. I want to know everything about it. Bibi Dong sat on the throne and said with a dignified face, rearrange the intelligence network in Douluo City. Elder Ghost and Elder Jew, you 2 go to the Seven Treasures Glazed sect and apologize on behalf of the Martial Spirit Palace. Also, pay a visit to the Douluo Empire's royal family. The Seven Treasures Glazed sect was the current #1 sect in the world and was very close to the royal family. The Martial Spirit Palace still needed to make up for the loss today. As for whether the other party would appreciate it or not, it depended on the situation. If the Marvel family made a move, there might be a big change in the Douluo Empire. It wasn't impossible for them to attack the Martial Spirit Palace. On the other hand, if the Martial Spirit Palace didn't do anything, Yu Guan and Gui Mei would go, which would be considered as the Martial Spirit Palace taking the initiative to give them a way out. After all, the Martial Spirit Palace was still very strong. The Seven Treasures glazed sect couldn't deal with them alone. The Heaven Do Empire also had to guard against the Star Luo Empire, so they couldn't attack the Martial Spirit Palace. As long as Ning Fengji wasn't stupid, he should be able to give them a way out. Yes, Pope. Lord Pope. Yu Guan and Gue Mei both replied. Under normal circumstances, the other elders of the Martial Spirit Palace would say something and doubt Bibi Dong's decision. However, the situation was critical now. Furthermore, Bibi Dong had displayed his 900,000-year soul ring. That powerful strength deterred them, so they didn't say anything at this moment. Everyone else, stay in the Martial Spirit City and guard against attacks. Bibi Dong continued. Yes. Everyone immediately responded. Bibi Dong definitely had arrangements for the specific details, but generally speaking, these were the main directions of the Martial Spirit Palace now. Guarding against the attacks of experts in the Martial Spirit City, dealing with the situation in the Heaven Do Empire, and finally investigating the Marvel family. This was also the most important point. Only after figuring out the situation of the Marvel family could their Martial Spirit Palace be at ease to do something else. Otherwise, this Marvel family would be like a mountain in front of them, blocking the path of the Martial Spirit Palace. Just as the Martial Spirit Palace was having a meeting, on the other side, Lin Feng had already arrived at the main group. For a long time, Lin Feng had been very curious about what would happen to his main body if something happened to his avatar. Until an hour ago, he experienced it. When his avatar self-destructed, his head was a little dizzy for a moment, and it was very painful. It took him about 2 seconds to recover. This was very terrifying. It was about 1 or 2 seconds of absent-mindedness. If his main body was in battle at that time, this little bit of time would be fatal. Fortunately, Lin Feng was not stupid and let his main body leave the scene in advance. After that, he immediately swapped places with the avatars beside Tang San and the others and returned to the main group. Then, it was the scene of the Martial Spirit Palace's elder chasing after them. After more than half an hour, Lin Feng took all the experience points from Tang Hao, Dusty Heart, and the others. During the chase, because they were afraid that the 1,000 streams would catch up and catch them all in one fell swoop, and because of the huge commotion in the Martial Spirit City, the group split up and fled for their own safety. When Thanos and the Martial Spirit Palace attacked, the aftershock of the soul power was too strong, and Lin Feng did not protect Tang San and the others, so he fainted at that time. As for Xue Qinghe, he pretended to be unconscious before, and after Dusty Heart took him out of the Martial Spirit City, he woke up. At this time, they split up, so there were no problems. Ning Fengji, Dusty Heart, Ning Rongrong, and Xue Qinghe were on one side as they rushed towards Heaven Do City. The Seven Treasures glazed sect and the Martial Spirit Palace could be considered to have met. They were afraid that the Martial Spirit Palace would launch a surprise attack on the sect, so they immediately rushed back. The 4 of them were extremely fast and left the main group. In fact, Xue Qinghe really wanted to stay because he felt that it was better to be with Lin Feng. At this time, the Marvel family had come out, so he felt that he could gain a lot of benefits by having a good talk. However, because of his identity, he really could not seize this opportunity, so he could only leave with Ning Fengji and the others. As for Tang Hao, he was more straightforward. After chatting with everyone for a while, he left with Tang San. He was quite excited after seeing the blue silver emperor on Tang San's body. At this moment, he had a lot of things to say to Tang San, and he also wanted to take him somewhere, so he left in a hurry. In the end, only the main group was left. There was Flanders' group, as well as Fatty, Dai Mubai, and Zhu Zhuqing. Right, the few people from Oakland Academy were also with them, but they quickly separated. They were very smart. At this time, there was absolutely no benefit for them to be with Shrek. Separating was the best choice. At this time, Flanders' group was in a small forest 50 kilometers away from Martial Spirit City, heading north. Flanders grabbed Ma Hongjun and Oscar. Lu Erlong grabbed Grandmaster and substitute student Jiang Zhu. Zhao Wuji carried Dai Mubai, and he also carried Tai Long and Huang Yuan. As for Xiao Wu and Zhu Zhuqing, they were both with Lin Feng. At that time, The two of them were closest to Lin Feng, so he casually grabbed them and ran. He really did not think much of it. Douluo caught up from behind and said, "It's okay. Let's rest for a while. We should have shaken them off." Other than Feng Huai's group, the other three sides were being chased by the elders of the martial spirit hall. Fortunately, each side had a titled soul master, Douluo, which gave them a chance to escape. Douluo had been following behind them earlier to prevent the elders from chasing after them. Now that he had caught up, there was most likely no danger. "Okay, everyone rest for half an hour." Flanders panted. Escaping from Martial Spirit City wasn't a smooth journey. There were many soul Douluo and soul sages in the city who tried to stop them. If Tang Hao, Chun Xian, and the others hadn't been so fierce, they might have been left behind. Even so, breaking out of the city consumed a lot of their energy. After leaving the city, they had been running in an extremely tense state. They even had to bring people along, so they had used up more than half of their energy. With an order, everyone sat down. Lin Feng did not do anything out of the ordinary. Douluo walked over and asked, "Mr. Destroy will be fine, right?" Not long after they left the city, Lin Feng's avatar self-destructed. The sound and power at that time shocked everyone. However, because they were running for their lives, they did not think much of it. After some time, the elders of the Martial Spirit Hall came chasing after them, but they still did not see Thanos. Douluo was a little worried. However, the elders kept him busy at that time, so he did not have time to ask Lin Feng. That was why it had been delayed until now. "Don't worry. Mr. Destroy is so strong. How could anything happen to him?" Lin Feng said with a smile. At this time, Lin Feng was very excited. The reason was very simple. After this operation, his experience points had increased by more than 1 billion. That's 1 billion yuan, you know. In the first half of the year, he had only earned 1 billion experience points. In just half an hour, he had earned as much as he had in the first half of the year. It seemed that he had made the right choice to scheme against the Continental Advanced Soul Master Academy Elite Tournament. That's true. Mr. Destroy is invincible. He will definitely be fine. Douluo trusted Thanos very much. He did not doubt him at all. The others were quickly recovering their soul power. At this time, only Lin Feng and Douluo still had the strength to speak. Lin Feng was now thinking about his next plan. With such a huge plan in place, he earned 1 billion experience points. Next, Lin Feng's plan was to start roaming the entire continent. The tracking devices that he had placed on the elite soul masters and students were about to start working. In this way, he did not have to return to Heaven Do City now. He had to leave with Xiao Wu first. After thinking for a while, Lin Feng said to Douluo, "After this, you will escort the dean and the others back. Mr. Destroy sent me a message earlier. Now that we have graduated, he wants to bring me to a place. I have to rush over with Xiao Wu first." After hearing this, Flanders and the others immediately gathered around. Douluo was also shocked. "Mr. Destroy is not coming." Flanders also hurriedly said, "Xiao Feng, are you and Xiao Wu leaving too?" 2 of Shrek's 7 monsters had left. Ning Rong was still fine, as she was in the 7 Treasures glazed sect. Tang San had been taken away by Tang Hao. At that time, because the elders were chasing after him, they did not even have time to say anything. Now that Lin Feng and Xiao Wu were leaving, Flanders and the others felt a little empty in their hearts. After these 2 left, only 4 of Shrek's 7 monsters were left. Furthermore, they could also see that Zhu Zhuqing and Dai Mubai would be leaving after waking up. The group did not even have time to have a farewell meal. It was too sudden. "That's right. Mr. Destroy is looking for me. Xiao Wu and I have to find Tang San, so we don't have to go back." Lin Feng nodded. "But Dean, it's time to go. Mubai and Take Shi should be waking up soon. It'll be too late if we don't leave now." Lin Feng interrupted Flanders and then looked at Douluo. "Mr. Destroy said that you should stay in Shrek Academy for now. When the time is right, he will go and find you. By the way, Mr. Destroy also said that the Martial Spirit Palace should not dare to cause trouble for Shrek Academy. If they do, you should tell them that you are from the Marvel family. After today's incident, as long as BB Dong was not a fool, he would not dare to touch Shrek Academy before Thanos returned to Heaven Do City. After all, they had no way to find out the strength of the Marvel family. They would only dare to make a move after they figured out the situation. Otherwise, if the Martial Spirit Palace dared to send people to attack Shrek Academy today, the Marvel family would dare to attack the Martial Spirit Branch Palaces all over the two empires tomorrow. Of course, Lin Feng's deterrence could not only be based on today's battle. In the future, he would release news about the Marvel family from time to time. In this way, nothing would happen for a few years. Chapter 388. Xiao Feng, this Marvel family. What is their background? Flanders asked cautiously. Today, the things that happened really gave people a dreamy feeling, and everyone was very curious about this Marvel family. It was too sudden. They had never heard of it before, and now it suddenly appeared with more than 30 soldats. Doctor Strange seemed to be from the Marvel family too. This was already a superpower. Even if Flinder asked about it, he still had to be careful. Douluo on the side was also curious. He had never heard of the Marvel family behind Thanos before. It's very mysterious. I'm not very sure either. This time, Mr. Destroy should be taking me to see this Marvel family, Lin Feng said. If that's the case, then we won't stop you. I hope that when you have time in the future, you can come to the academy to see us. Flanders sighed. They knew that an outstanding person like Lin Feng would leave them one day, but they didn't expect it to be so sudden. In fact, this was also good. Now that Shrek's 7 monsters were in a coma, they wouldn't be too sad when they left. Dean, don't worry. Xiao-san and I will definitely come back to see you. Didn't we agree before the competition? 3 years later, we will definitely come back to Shrek Academy. Lin Feng smiled. In the original work, Tang San and the others had agreed on a time of 5 years. Now that Lin Feng was here, he directly set a time of 3 years. After all, 5 years was too long. 3 years was neither too long nor too short. It was just right, and the name of the 3 years agreement sounded more pleasant. For example, the 3 years agreement was up, and the Dragon King had returned. There was also Xiao Yan's 3 years agreement to go to the Misty Cloud sect and divorce his wife. These big events were all in 3 years. So Lin Feng followed the trend and set a time of 3 years. That's true. I'm really looking forward to what you'll be like 3 years from now. With your cultivation speed, you might even have a chance to become a Soul Emperor. Flanders smiled, as if he could already see what everyone would be like 3 years from now. Lin Feng smiled and didn't say anything. He put Zhu Zhuqing down. At this moment, Zhu Zhuqing whispered, "Feng Ge, don't go." When she was mumbling, her brows were still tightly furrowed. At that moment, Lin Feng thought that she was awake. After taking a look, he realized that Zhu Zhuqing was talking in his sleep. Even in her dream, she was telling him not to leave. She was probably having a nightmare about him leaving. Sigh. This girl. Lin Feng didn't know what to say. Wait 3 years. 3 years later, Zhu Zhuqing would be 17 years old. If she still had feelings for him by then, Lin Feng felt that this relationship could still be discussed. After helping Takshi tidy up her slightly messy hair, Lin Feng waited for her eyebrows to relax before standing up. He turned around and said, "Dean, Xiao Wu and I'll take our leave first." With that, the immeasurable flower appeared in Lin Feng's hand. Then he activated his first soul skill, Life Bloom. A green light filled the entire arena. Everyone's soul power and physical strength were rapidly recovering. Those who were originally unconscious were about to wake up. Looking at Zhu Zhuqing, whose eyebrows were slightly raised, Lin Feng smiled and said, "See you later." With that, Lin Feng quickly left with Xiao Wu. In fact, Douluo still had some questions in his heart, but he held them back. Just now, Lin Feng said that when the time came, Mr. Destroy would look for him again. He wasn't in a hurry. Just like that, Shrek's 7 monsters separated for the day. It would be difficult for them to reunite in a short period of time. Flanders and the others were escorted by Douluo, so their safety should be fine. On Ning Rongrong's side, the 7 Treasures Glazed sect wasn't just for show. As the richest sect on the continent, their wealth was comparable to that of a country. It was fine if Bibi Dong threatened them in Martial Spirit City, but now that Dusty Heart had returned to the sect, Bibi Dong and the others didn't dare to act rashly. As for Tang San, there was no need to worry about him. Tang Hao wasn't a fool. He would protect him well. At this time, he could learn a lot by following Tang Hao. 3 years later, he would probably return to Shrek Academy. Lin Feng didn't have to deliberately look for him. There was no need. Right now, earning experience points was the most important thing for him. As he thought about this, Lin Feng flew straight toward the setting sun forest with Xiao Wu. The ice fire Yin Yang well could be considered one of Lin Feng's bases. Now that Xiao, Ying, and Little Moon were there, Lin Feng was going to bring them over to move. Where would they move to? Stardew Great Forest, of course. It was where Daming and Erming were. Coincidentally, Xiao Wu would also be sent over. At the same time, he would also remodel that place. This way, it would be his second base. When he was healing everyone earlier, Lin Feng didn't care about Xiao Wu, mainly because he was too lazy to explain anything to her while flying. However, after flying for a while, Xiao Wu woke up on her own. Feng Ge. She had just woken up and was still a little confused. After shaking her head, she suddenly came to her senses and realized that she was in the air. She immediately cried out in surprise. This was an altitude of several thousand meters. The city looked like a toy from below. Xiao Wu was a rabbit, and she usually felt that climbing a tree was too high. Now that she suddenly appeared in the sky, it would be strange if she wasn't afraid. Seeing this, Lin Feng quickly landed on the ground. After a while, Xiao Wu came back to her senses and asked with a sobbing tone, Feng Ge, why were we flying just now? Where's third brother and the others? They've all left. We won't be able to see them for a while. There might be a huge change on the continent soon. I'll send you to Stardew Great Forest to hide. Lin Feng said first, then quickly told her about Dusty Heart, Tang Hao, and the others. In other words, we won't see third brother for 3 years? Xiao Wu said in a daze. Not really. If we spend some time looking, we should be able to find Xiao San. However, I might not welcome us too much. Lin Feng said. Why? Xiao Wu quickly asked. On one hand, it's because they're the Martial Spirit Palace's archenemy. They don't want to bring danger to us. On the other hand, it's because they have something to do and don't want us to disturb them. Lin Feng explained. Third brother won't do that. Xiao San won't, but his father will. Don't think too much. I'll take you to see 2 friends. Lin Feng interrupted Xiao Wu's question. He carried her with one hand and quickly flew at a low altitude in the forest. Flying at a low altitude was not much different from flying at high altitude. However, compared to flying at a high altitude, there was a higher possibility of being discovered. But since Xiao Wu was afraid of heights, then he would fly at a low altitude. Nothing would happen anyway. At this moment, Xiao Wu finally came to her senses. She said with surprise, Feng Ge, you can fly. How did you do it? Lin Feng. Xiao Wu's reaction arc was a bit too long. And Feng Ge, what's your rank? When we were in the Martial Spirit City, I saw that the soul power of a titled battle pet warrior couldn't even affect you. Xiao Wu asked, Oh, you're quite observant. But why is your reaction arc so long? Lin Feng couldn't help but complain. Not everyone could pay attention to such small details. The fact that Xiao Wu could notice it meant that she was quite observant. It was just that this reaction arc was too much for him to complain about. You scare me just now. I've been wanting to ask you this for a long time. Xiao Wu mumbled. Needless to say, the feeling of flying through the forest at high speed was quite interesting. It wasn't the feeling of being scared to death in the air like before. Oh, Lin Feng nodded and then smiled. I have a soul skill that can fly. As for my rank, you can guess. I guess you're over rank 70. Xiao Wu made a bold guess. When they went to school together, they had just awakened. It had only been 7 years since then. Soul sages at rank 70 were equivalent to about 10 ranks in a year. If this guess was told, no soul master on the continent would believe it. Just take it that way. Lin Feng smiled and didn't object. Hearing this, Xiao Wu said in disbelief, Feng Ge, don't tell me you're already over rank 80. If she said that he was over rank 70, Feng Ge wouldn't object. Xiao Wu guessed that there were 2 possibilities. The first was that she guessed too low. The second was that Feng Ge was still perfunctory with her, as before. Of these 2 possibilities, the second was more likely. However, Xiao Wu felt that it was more likely to be the first possibility. There was no basis at all. It was just her intuition. That's hard to say. Lin Feng still had the same smile on his face. Hearing this, Xiao Wu immediately felt that it wasn't the first possibility. It should be the second. Feng Ge was fooling her as before. He wasn't prepared to tell her the truth at all. She was thinking too much. It was impossible for a soul master to become a soul Douluo in 7 years. Otherwise, at this speed, he would probably be a titled Douluo by the age of 15. Then, he would become a god before the age of 30. Just thinking about it, this possibility was too low. So Xiao Wu rejected her previous guess. Feng Ge is lying again, Xiao Wu said. Huh. Lin Feng laughed and didn't say anything else. Just like that, the two of them advanced quickly. Before night fell, they arrived at the sunset forest. Feng Ge, who were the two friends you mentioned? Xiao Wu asked curiously. Weren't their friends only the people in the Shrek Academy? Now, that Lin Feng said that he had friends in the sunset forest, Xiao Wu was very curious. You've seen one of them before. Lin Feng had already led Xiao Wu to the front of the formation. I've seen him before? Xiao Wu was instantly puzzled. She couldn't think of anyone she had seen before. With this doubt, she walked into the formation with Lin Feng. Then she saw a big leopard pounce on Lin Feng, wagging its tail and licking him with its tongue. Isn't this Xiaoying? Xiao Wu didn't see clearly at first, but she immediately reacted. That's right, it's Xiaoying. Lin Feng rubbed Xiao Ying's head and smiled. Xiaoying also noticed Xiao Wu at this time. He immediately ran over and stuck to her. Xiao Ying is actually a soul beast. Xiao Wu was in disbelief. After being in contact with Xiao Ying for so long, Xiao Wu really didn't realize this. She just felt an inexplicable closeness. Coupled with his cute appearance, she really liked hugging Xiao Ying. Xiao Ying's strength was still very strong. Because of his powerful, shape-shifting ability and the fact that he didn't reveal any aura, he wasn't discovered. That's right, Xiao Ying is a soul beast, and with his current strength, he should be about to break through to 100,000-year soul beast. Lin Feng smiled. Really? Xiao Wu's eyes shone with starlight. Looking at Xiao Ying, it was as if she was looking at her past self. As they spoke, Little Moon also ran over. The branches on his body shook incessantly, and leaves scattered all over the ground. The roots under his feet made the ground look like it had been plowed by cows, and his body exuded a sense of excitement. In the past, Lin Feng would reprimand Little Moon when he saw it plowing the ground. But now it was fine. It's a moon tree soul beast. Xiao Wu's eyes lit up. Yeah. Little Moon cried out twice, very excited. Plant-type soul beasts were generally very good at hiding. Even Xiao Wu hadn't seen many of them before. Now that she saw Little Moon, she felt very curious. It's called Little Moon, and it has a cultivation of more than 70,000 years. Lin Feng smiled. Little Moon had a good appetite, and Lin Feng had fed it with his life energy. Coupled with the energy from the ice fire yin yang well and the immortal medicine, it was able to rapidly increase its strength during this period of time. Feng Ge, you're so powerful, you can actually subdue such strong soul beasts like Xiao Ying and Little Moon. Xiao Wu had a look of admiration. In this manner, it's really too beautiful. After taking a few glances, Xiao Wu suddenly curled her lips. Feng Ge, you always like to go outside, so you came here, right? Such a good place, but you didn't tell me in third brother. Xiao Wu, who was smiling just now, suddenly became unhappy. Women changed their faces really quickly. Lin Feng ridiculed in his heart, but he quickly said with an innocent face, Xiaosen also knows about this place. Didn't he tell you? Third brother also knows? Xiao Wu was stunned, and soon said angrily, Third brother is too despicable. He actually didn't tell me. Seeing Xiao Wu instantly shift her hatred, Lin Feng thought to himself, Xiao San, this blame is on you. Lin Feng's main mission this time was to take Xiao Ying and Little Moon away and go to the Star Doe Great Forest together. Xiao Ying was fine, but it would be a little troublesome for Lin Feng to take Little Moon away. He would need to provide it with life force the entire time to ensure that it would not be injured. However, these were all small matters. It was just that it was relatively large and might be seen by others. At that time, it would cause some unnecessary effects. After all, Anyone would be shocked to see a tree flying in the sky. However, on second thought, Lin Feng could choose to travel at night. At that time, the sky would be dark, and it would be difficult to be discovered if he flew high in the sky. Moreover, it would be dark, so Xiao would not be too afraid of heights. After deciding to set off at night, Lin Feng went to the ice-fire Yin-Yang well to deal with the immortal herbs. He mainly took away the older ones, leaving only some seeds here. The lake where Daming and Erming lived was actually a good treasure land. It might not be as good as the ice-fire Yin-Yang well, but it was much better than ordinary places. It wouldn't be a big problem for Lin Feng to bring these immortal herbs over. Chapter 389. After making all the necessary preparations, Lin Feng waited until the sky darkened before he began his journey of moving house. Moving house was very simple. Lin Feng turned the 1,000-trickster ruler into a rope and hung Little Moon up. Then, he flew toward the Star Doe Great Forest. Xiao Wu and Xiaoling stood on Little Moon's head. It was as if they were on a plane. Moreover, they were sitting in the first-class cabin. High up in the sky, Xiao Wu was enjoying the cool breeze. Xiaoling was lying beside her. Her little face was filled with contentment. Fengge, this is great. Xiao Wu stretched out her hands and looked at the starry sky above her head. She smiled foolishly. Previously, when they were below, Xiao Wu was very reluctant when she heard that they had to fly in the sky again. Later, Lin Feng told her that they had nothing to do at night, and that it would be fine to just look at the sky above. After some coaxing, she finally agreed to fly a little higher. Now, it was the perfect place to have sex. I told you earlier. You didn't believe me. Lin Feng smiled. Needless to say, the starry sky in Douluo's world was really beautiful. There was no light pollution. Flying in the night sky with a gentle breeze blowing on one's face was like a dream in a sea of stars. It made one feel very comfortable. Suddenly, Xiao Wu seemed to have thought of something. She said, Fengge, are we really not going to see third brother for 3 years? They had lived together for more than 7 years. Suddenly, they were going to separate. They didn't even have time to say goodbye. Xiao Wu was still a little sad. It depends on the situation. When the time comes, I'll go out with Mr. Destroy. If we meet Xiao San, I'll bring him to the Star Doe Great Forest to look for you. Huh? Xiao Wu was stunned. Then, she said with anticipation, Fengge, I want to go out with Mr. Destroy. Can you bring me along? A woo, Xiaoling also roared. The little moon at the bottom also let out a squeak, and the tree branches swayed incessantly. No, no, no. The 3 of you can't go. Mr. Destroy only wants me. Lin Feng waved his hand. It was much faster for him to farm EXP alone. If he brought along a few burdens, wouldn't he be looking for trouble? I see. Xiao Wu's tone was filled with disappointment. Lin Feng continued, all of you better train hard and improve yourselves when the time comes, especially Xiao Wu. Don't slack off. I'll get Daming to supervise you. You have to become a soul sage within 3 years. That way, I'll take you out to play when I have the chance. Otherwise, you'll have to stay in the forest for the next 3 years. In truth, before becoming a soul emperor, one needed to come into contact with many people in order to increase their strength. However, Xiao Wu had eaten the immortal herb, so she was no longer restricted. Even if she was in the forest, she could still cultivate. And now, Xiao Wu estimated that she would become a soul king in half a month. According to her current cultivation speed, it wouldn't be easy for her to become a soul sage in 3 years. However, as long as she worked hard, there was still a chance. Fengge, don't. Can you not let Daming supervise me? Erming can also supervise me. Xiao Wu had a bitter look on her face. Although Daming and Erming were both her younger brothers, their personalities could be said to be completely different. Daming liked to be quiet and steady. He usually cultivated, and he broke through to become a 100,000-year soul beast earlier than Xiao Wu. Erming's personality was similar to hers. He was more lively and liked to move around. He was still far from becoming a 100,000-year soul beast. If it was Daming supervising, it would definitely be very strict. However, if it was Erming, it would be very relaxed, and the two of them would even play together. No, Lin Feng rejected directly. Suddenly, Xiao Wu thought of something and asked, Feng Gu, how do you know about daming and erming? She didn't realize it before, but now that she thought about it, how did Lin Feng know daming and erming? Mr. Destroy has interacted with them before. He told me about it, Lin Feng answered. Back then, Lin Feng used the identity of Thanos to go to the Star-Do Great Forest to farm experience for a period of time. They could be considered to know each other. However, Lin Feng naturally wouldn't reveal the identity of Thanos, so he could only find an excuse. The identity of Thanos was Lin Feng's ultimate disguise. He wouldn't tell anyone. He only had one purpose, and that was to be his own life-saving substitute. The dangerous things would be done by Thanos, and his real identity, Lin Feng, would always be hidden. Although Lin Feng hadn't seen any plot of a god coming down to kill people in Douluo, because of his arrival, who knew if something different would happen? Therefore, his Slayer Overlord clone was to guard against this kind of thing. If one day the god went crazy and came down to kill him, Thanos would be the layer of insurance. Maybe all of this was Lin Feng's imagination, but he only had one life. Lin Feng could be more prudent. Oh, I see. Xiao Wu nodded. After that, she still wanted to fight for an opportunity to be lazy. She said coquettishly, Feng Gu, can you lower your requirements? Can I become a Soul Emperor in 3 years? If you want to become a Soul Sage, even third brother can't break through. I'm weaker than him, so it's even more impossible. Don't think about such nonsense. Xiaosun might not be able to become a Soul Sage in 3 years, but he'll definitely be stronger than you. Maybe you won't be able to beat him even when you become a Soul Sage, Lin Feng said casually. Tang San was now a rank 54 Soul King, much stronger than in the original work. Furthermore, his martial soul had evolved. In addition to the increase in his control of immortal herbs and soul power, his conditions were much better than in the original work. If he cultivated using Tang Hao's closed-door method, he should be able to break through to become a Soul Emperor in half a year. When that time came, he would absorb a 50,000-year soul ring and easily reach rank 63 or above. In the remaining 2 years, Tang San would probably go to the City of Massacre at Tang Hao's request. Although that place was strange, the current Tang San was even more strange than in the original work. He had even mastered the mysterious technique of combining hidden weapons and soul skills. Soul Masters couldn't use soul skills over there, but hidden weapons with soul skills were very useful. With Tang San's hidden weapons, it wouldn't be long before Tang San could walk out of the City of Massacre. When that happened, Tang San's strength would increase exponentially. I don't believe it. When I become a Soul Sage, I'll definitely beat up third brother, Xiao Wu said angrily. Lin Feng's provocation ignited Xiao Wu's fighting spirit. She wanted to break through to become a Soul Sage and teach Tang San a lesson. I'll wait and see. Lin Feng laughed and didn't say anything else. Just as Lin Feng brought Xiao Wu and the others to move, Dusty Heart and the others rushed back to the Seven Treasures Glazed sect. The entire sect is on alert. If you discover anything unusual, immediately report it. Inform all the elders to come for a meeting. Ning Fengji called for a meeting the moment he arrived at the sect. The meeting was very simple. There were only 2 points. First, everyone was to be armed and ready for battle. Second, start contacting the major powers of the Heaven Do Empire and prepare to form an alliance. The Seven Treasures Glazed sect's prestige was still very terrifying. It had a lot of influence on the entire continent. In particular, the sect's wealth was comparable to that of a country. It wasn't a joke. They had shares in all the soul dueling arenas on the continent. If he wanted to take the lead and go against the Martial Soul Hall, he really had a way to make it difficult for the Martial Soul Hall in the Heaven Do Empire. After all, money was an ability that allowed him to do whatever he wanted. Of course, in the end, it would be a lose-lose situation. However, the Martial Spirit Palace had declared war on the Seven Treasures Glazed sect. The Seven Treasures Glazed sect wasn't made of dough. They had to let the Martial Spirit Palace know their power. Ning Rongrong had been listening to the conversation from the side. She had grown up now. Ning Fengji felt that she should listen to this when the sect's survival was at stake. The entire Seven Treasures Glazed sect was on alert for the night. They gathered all their strength together to prevent the Martial Soul Hall's elders from launching a sneak attack. Ning Fengji heaved a sigh of relief when the sun rose. He sent some soul sages out to gather the major powers of the Heaven Do Empire to discuss how to resist the Martial Soul Hall. In the afternoon, two people appeared outside the sect just as the elders were about to return. They didn't hide their auras. Dusty Heart recognized them immediately. Yu Guan and Gue Mei. These two old fogies came over after just one day. They even swaggered over. It didn't seem like they were here to pick a fight. Otherwise, it would be too foolish of them to swagger into the sect. In fact, the two of them had a 30,000-year soul bone in their hands. It was a skull bone that was extremely suitable for a soul master like Ning Rongrong. Their purpose was to apologize to the Seven Treasures Glazed sect. Ning Fengji didn't reject this, but he wasn't in a hurry to accept it either. He was a smart person. After a short conversation, he quickly realized that he had two choices now. The first was that he could find an ally, especially the Marvel family. Under such circumstances, he could contact the Clear Sky sect. Even if their alliance became enemies with the Martial Soul Hall, it wouldn't be a problem. There was no need to pay attention to the Martial Soul Hall's negotiation. However, the second situation was that he couldn't form an alliance with the Marvel family. In that case, the three upper sects might be able to rely on the Heaven Do Empire to resist the Martial Soul Hall. However, it would be useless except for both sides suffering losses. Therefore, it was better to choose peace. Just as Ning Fengji was thinking, Gue Mei told him that Thanos hadn't returned to Heaven Do City yet, and that the Marvel family had disappeared. The Martial Soul Hall was indeed worthy of being called the Martial Soul Hall. In just one day, their intelligence network had already reported the situation of the important cities on the entire continent. In these places, they didn't receive any news about the Marvel family. It seemed that this force had really gone into hiding. Ning Fengji only used the information provided by the Martial Soul Hall as a reference. He didn't believe it at all. He was waiting for the sect elders to bring back the feedback of the various forces, especially the Shrek Academy. Therefore, he delayed Gue Mei and the others and waited for the elders to return. Yu Guan and Gue Mei didn't panic. They were here to negotiate, so they didn't have to worry about their safety. On one hand, their powers were guaranteed. Their soul fusion skills might not be able to defeat Dusty Heart and Gu Rong, who were both enhanced by Ning Fengji, but they would be able to get away with it. On the other hand, they had the Martial Soul Hall as their backer. If they were killed, then it wouldn't be a big deal. At most, Bibi Dong and the others would take revenge. However, if they were killed during negotiations, then Bibi Dong would even be able to ask the worshippers to step in. Those titled Douluo were all extremely powerful beings, and no one would be able to stop them if they were to attack the Seven Treasures Glazed sect. It was because of this that the two of them weren't panicking in the slightest, even though they were in the Seven Treasures Glazed sect headquarters. Just as they were drinking tea, the elders that Ning Fengji had sent out earlier returned one after another. As for the other powers, Ning Fengji wanted to hear more about the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Clan and Shrek Academy. The former was smart enough to recognize the current situation and immediately agreed to the alliance. As for the Shrek Academy, Douluo naturally supported the alliance, but it also meant that Thanos wouldn't be coming to Heaven Do City in the near future. The Marvel family also wouldn't be appearing in the near future. This news was exactly the same as what Yu Guan and Gue Mei had said. In this way, the choice was very clear. Ning Fengji accepted the Soul Bone. For the time being, it wasn't appropriate for them to clash with the Martial Soul Hall. It was better for them to endure and observe the situation. This time, they could obtain a suitable soul bone for their daughter. Even if they had to suffer a little in the past, it was still worth it. Furthermore, Ning Fengji believed that the situation on the continent would change. During the tournament, didn't Doctor Strange say that he wanted to challenge the entire continent? He was also a member of the Marvel family. Although this power had disappeared for a short time, it would probably appear in the world of Soul Masters again soon. When that time came, When this power stirred up the world of soul masters, all the things that couldn't be seen before would surface. Gui Mei and Yu Guan left. After leaving the Seven Treasures glazed sect, they went directly to the Martial Soul Temple in Heaven-Do City. They met Yingluan, then went straight to find the Snowy Night Emperor. They talked for more than an hour. How the conversation went was unknown, but in the end, the two of them left with satisfied expressions. Before leaving Heaven-Do City, the two of them reorganized Heaven-Do City's intelligence network. Douluo didn't go anywhere. He quietly guarded the Shrek Academy. It was unrealistic for the Martial Soul Hall to attack the Heaven-Do Empire at this time, but there was a certain chance that they would send someone to assassinate them. Therefore, Douluo specially stayed here to protect Dai Mubai and the others. Under his protection, the Shrek Academy was very safe. During this time, Zhu Zhuqing and Dai Mubai quietly left. Now that the continent was in turmoil, the two of them had to bear the pressure of their families. It was time for them to go back and deal with it. As for Oscar and Ma Hongjun, they weren't in a hurry to leave. Instead, they stayed in the academy for a while to observe the situation. They originally wanted to join the Tang sect, but now that Tang San was gone, they could only wait. A few days later, Ning Rongrong went to Heaven-Do City with dusty heart and found out about the current situation in the academy. She was a little sad because Lin Feng, Mu Bai, and the others suddenly left without saying goodbye. Of course, this was all in the future. At this time, Lin Feng had already settled down in the Star Do Great Forest. Chapter 390. It had been a day since Lin Feng and the others arrived at the Star Do Great Forest. With Xiao Wu around, Daming and Erming were very welcoming of their arrival. Little Moon settled down in a valley by the lake, and Xiaoing was also there. Lin Feng planted all the immortal herbs by the lake where Daming was, and then built a small courtyard here. It was mainly built for Xiao Wu. For the next period of time, Xiao Wu would live here. She couldn't live in a cave, right? The house was built very quickly. Erming and Xiaoing came over to help, and by evening, it was finished. Go in and take a look. Do you like it? If you don't like it, you can change it again. Lin Feng said to Xiao Wu. The latter ran in with a look of anticipation and then quickly ran out. She said excitedly, I like it, I like it. Thank you, Fengge. It's good that you like it. Lin Feng nodded and smiled. Fengge, bring me along when you go out tomorrow. I'll definitely be very obedient and won't run around. Xiao Wu came over and held Lin Feng's hand and said with a look of hope. Ever since Lin Feng said in the morning that he was leaving tomorrow, Xiao Wu had been saying that she wanted to leave with him. This was actually the third time Xiao Wu had said this today. Lin Feng didn't say anything and hit her head, saying, don't think about it. Cultivate well. I'll come back once in a month at the latest. The next time I come back, if you can become a soul king, I'll bring you out to play for a day. If you're still rank 49, then don't think about going out for 3 months. Oh. Xiao Wu touched her head with an aggrieved look. Originally, Xiaoing also wanted to let Lin Feng bring it out, but looking at the situation, it was better to forget it. Just like that, the night passed quickly. The next morning, Thanos appeared and personally took Lin Feng away. Before he left, Lin Feng reminded Xiao Wu to cultivate well, which made her very worried. At this point, the burden in Lin Feng's heart had been completely lifted. In the following period of time, it was time for him to properly farm experience. Hasn't the Martial Spirit Palace been searching for the Marvel family recently? At that time, he will run all over the continent, using the Marvel family's name. Let's see how you can find him. With that in mind, Lin Feng's first stop was the Star Luo Empire's thriving Dragon City. This was the northernmost border city of the Star Luo Empire, and it wasn't far from the Star Do Great Forest. The Yuji clan seemed to be located here. Other than that, there were also many soul master organizations here. There were also quite a few people on the same level as Soul Douluo. Lin Feng went there, and he should be able to farm tens of millions of experience points. If he planned well, he could even attack the Martial Spirit Palace in thriving Dragon City and attract the people of the Martial Spirit Palace over, and he could farm experience points again. If he was lucky, it would not be a problem to earn hundreds of millions of experience points in a city. Even if he was unlucky and did not succeed in fishing, There should be tens of millions. Just like that, with a sense of anticipation, Lin Feng flew quickly to thriving Dragon City. At the same time, on the mountain road west of the starred Do Great Forest, Tang Hao and Tang San rushed in the direction of the Heaven Do Empire, one in front and one behind. Both of them were rushing in silence. They did not say much, and the atmosphere was a little dull. After Tang San woke up yesterday, Tang Hao was very excited and talked a lot with him. Today, he was going to take Tang San to a place. It was the place where Tang Hao had been living in seclusion all these years. It was in a mountain range inside the Haagen-Dazs Kingdom. The specific location was west of Nodding City, in a large mountain range behind the Mont Forest. Because the terrain of this mountain range was very complicated, there are not many soul beasts inside. Very few soul masters came in, and even if they did, they would usually wander around the periphery. Tang Hao called this mountain range Iron Mountain Range because Tang San's mother, Iron, was buried here. He took Tang San there for no other reason than to let him quickly improve his strength. There was a big waterfall here, and he wanted to use this big waterfall to train Tang San. As for Iron, Tang Hao decided to wait until Tang San's strength was a little stronger. But speaking of which, Tang Hao was very shocked by Tang San's current strength. What a joke! A 14-year-old Soul King. Even he could not reach this kind of strength back then. Now, Tang San's achievements were simply unprecedented. However, this was not what shocked him the most, because Tang San told him that Lin Feng might already be a Soul Emperor. A 14-year-old Soul Emperor, Tang Hao was stunned at that time, and he even said that it was impossible. However, when Tang San told him about the control of soul power, the immortal grass, and knocking over a Soul King with one punch. Although Tang Hao did not see it with his own eyes, he was already 80% convinced in his heart. Lin Feng's achievements, no matter which one it was, were astonishing. Now, all of them were gathered on one person. Tang Hao could only say that this Lin Feng's talent was really too terrifying. Especially behind him stood the incomparably mysterious Marvel family. Thanos, Doctor Strange, and other powerful titled Douluo were all members of this family. They were really too strong. To be honest, if he had not watched Lin Feng grow up in the village, Tang Hao would have suspected that Lin Feng had some other identity. But because of this, he was even more curious about why a powerhouse like Thanos would be related to Lin Feng. Tang San told him about the soul hunting forest, but Tang Hao did not believe these words. He was only an assistant for a period of time, and he was taken care of like this? It was really hard to believe. There must be other reasons. However, Tang Hao did not ask too much. Lin Feng and Tang San were on good terms, and they even became sworn brothers. This was a good thing. No matter what Lin Feng's achievements were in the future, he probably would not do anything bad to Tang San. Now, he wanted to let Tang San's strength quickly increase so that he could catch up to Lin Feng's footsteps. Longxing City was a large city at the border of the Star Luo Empire. Its trade was very prosperous, and it was about the same size as Soto City. The branch halls in Martial Spirit City were all led by Soul Douluo. Although he was not Soul Douluo, who was a platinum bishop, he was still extremely powerful. After Lin Feng arrived in the city, he did not start fighting like a rash person. His clones scattered out and began to wander around the city. On one hand, he wanted to understand the situation in the city and the distribution of the various forces. On the other hand, he wanted to sense the clones that he had left behind earlier to find the forces behind them. The communication efficiency of Douluo's world was relatively low. It would take Lin Feng a few days to figure out the situation of these forces. And not only in the city, there were also many forces outside the city, and their numbers were the majority. After all, it was too expensive to buy land in the city. Not all forces were so rich. Many foreign forces would choose to buy land around the city. The Yuji family was still quite rich. Their family's land could be seen in the city. Lin Feng did not feel anything special about this. This family's ability was to build houses. Other than that, their soul master's defense was strong. Lin Feng did not give them any special treatment. After he investigated the situation in Longxing City clearly, he began to implement his challenge plan. The plan was very simple: To sum it up, it was fast. Blitzkrieg. After some investigation, they found out that there were 33 soul sages and 8 soul Douluo in the vicinity of Longxing City. Lin Feng wanted to fight with everyone within an hour, including the 3 soul sages from the Martial Spirit Branch Hall and 1 soul Douluo. If he did not have the 1,000 Trickery Rulers clones, it would be very difficult for Lin Feng to carry out the Blitzkrieg. But now that he had the clones, it was very easy. Lin Feng did 13 things at once. 13 people, including his main body, directly found 13 targets. Without saying a word, he rushed up to fight. At the same time, he shouted, "A certain soul master from the Marvel family is here to challenge." This certain soul master, Lin Feng shouted randomly. Anyway, it was just a name. It was mainly to announce that he was from the Marvel family. Then, each battle lasted for about 10 minutes and changed according to the actual situation. Under such circumstances, in an hour, all the soul sages and above in Longxing City and the surrounding forces fought with Lin Feng. He gained more than 30 million experience points, and at the same time, beat up the Martial Spirit Branch Hall. For a time, the whole city was boiling. The Marvel family actually appeared. At this time, the Martial Spirit Branch Hall was searching for the Marvel family with all their strength. The entire continent was searching. These days, there were arrest warrants for Thanos and the others everywhere. But the Marvel family actually committed a crime here and beat up all the experts in the city. The Martial Spirit Branch Hall master reported this news to the Martial Spirit City without saying a word. But at this time, the Soul Masters in Longxing City were a little confused. Logically speaking, this kind of challenge should be a counterattack by the Marvel family. So many Soul Masters were dispatched, but why didn't anyone from the Martial Spirit Branch Hall die? And one more thing, why did the Marvel family challenge the Soul Masters of all the major forces in Longxing City? Was there any special meaning to this? And just as the whole city was in heated discussion, Lin Feng had already left clones everywhere in the city to pay attention to the changes in the situation. This place was not far from the Martial Spirit City, and the news spread quickly. Lin Feng made a move in the morning, and people from the Martial Spirit City would probably come in the afternoon. If there were less than 4 title Douluo, Lin Feng would choose to make a move and gain experience points. And if there were many people, then he would still have to run. After all, he couldn't beat them at all. And his clone, Lin Feng found that the last self-destruction had left a big impression on him. Although the clone was recondensed within 2 days, its strength was not as good as before. When it came out, it was only 50% of its previous strength. In the next few days, it had recovered to about 80%. If it wanted to fully recover, it would probably take about a month. The self-destruction of the clone still affected its strength, and Lin Feng felt that if it self-destructed too many times, it might affect the quality of the 1,000 Trickery Ruler. So at this time, Lin Feng felt that it was better to treat the clone well. It was best to treat it as important as the main body, so that it wouldn't be easy to get into trouble. Just as he was thinking about this, it was soon noon. Martial Spirit City, Pope Palace, and the study. Bibi Dong was formulating the next step of the Martial Spirit Branch Hall. She sometimes gritted her teeth, sometimes frowned, and looked like she had encountered a difficult problem. "Pope, there is news from the Longxing City Branch Hall that there are people from the Marvel family." Suddenly, Ghost Demon's voice came from outside the study. When Bibi Dong heard the words Marvel family, her eyes lit up, and she quickly said, "Come in. Tell me what's going on." Ghost Demon walked in and reported, "This morning, Longxing City." Very quickly, Gui Mei told him everything. Bibi Dong didn't hesitate and said directly, "Call Yue Guan and Qin Yin. Let's go." "Pope, are you going out too?" Ghost Demon was stunned. "Do you have a problem?" Bibi Dong glanced at him. Her eyes flashed, and a huge aura exuded. Ghost Demon was shocked and quickly said, "Your subordinate doesn't dare." In fact, the Pope was generally not allowed to leave the Martial Spirit City. But looking at Bibi Dong's posture, it was obvious that he couldn't stop her, so Ghost Demon didn't stupidly say anything. At this time, after responding, he immediately went out to call for people. 3 minutes later, Bibi Dong took Ghost Douluo, Chrysanthemum Douluo, and Qingyan, a group of 4 people, and went straight to Longxing City. In Longxing City, Lin Feng had just finished eating the delicacies in the snack street. Suddenly, at the north gate, Lin Feng's doppelganger felt a few powerful and familiar auras, which were rapidly approaching Longxing City. After sensing for a while, Lin Feng left Longxing City without saying a word and rushed to the south. Good lord, this BB Dong actually came personally and even brought Ghost Douluo, Chrysanthemum Douluo, and Qingyan Douluo. This BB Dong was really meticulous. The 3 people he brought were all strong people who could control people. Qingyan was, needless to say, he was a powerful control type titled Douluo. The main thing was Yueguan and Ghost Demon. The 2 of them could release powerful martial soul fusion skills. If Lin Feng dared to rush up, he would probably be killed by BB Dong. After all, BB Dong was too strong at this time, probably in the trial of God. Wouldn't he be courting death if he went up? So running directly to the south was the most correct decision. He went to the next city and prepared to repeat the same trick to see if he could attract BB Dong again. If he could attract him, he would run. If BB Dong didn't come, he could farm experience points. Lin Feng's subsequent cities were all disorderly. In this way, it was difficult for the Martial Spirit Palace to guess which city he was going to next. Otherwise, if he challenged one after another, his route would soon be deduced. BB Dong only needed to gather the power of the Martial Spirit Palace and then wait for him in the city. As long as they waited, Lin Feng would probably lose a layer of skin even if he didn't die. And just as Lin Feng went south, BB Dong and the others also came to the Martial Spirit Palace of Longxing City. Next, that was to understand the situation and then capture the people of the Marvel family. But at this time, Lin Feng had already left here, and BB Dong's capture operation had failed from the beginning. After a night, the Martial Spirit Palace searched the whole city, but found nothing. BB Dong couldn't keep searching here. There were still many things she needed to do in the Martial Spirit City. She left at noon the next day. However, Ghost, Demon, and the others would continue to search for 3 days. Chapter 391. The large-scale search by the Martial Spirit Palace was very imposing, and the various forces in Longxing City were very cooperative. Although the Marvel family did not kill anyone, they suddenly found the powerhouses of all the forces in a short period of time. This intelligence ability and the dozen or so elusive masters made all the forces very wary. After all, they did not kill anyone this time, but what about next time? Even if he didn't kill anyone every time, not everyone would be able to endure a sudden fight like this. At the same time, the news that Doctor Strange threatened to challenge the entire continent spread. This news was originally spreading, but it was only limited to some major forces. Now that this happened in Longxing City, the whole continent was spreading it. In the battle in Martial Spirit City, Doctor Strange self-destructed and died. Not many people knew about this. Only a few elders of the Martial Spirit Palace knew. So now that something had happened, it was basically Doctor Strange's doing. But BB Dong guessed that it was most likely sent by Thanos. After all, the only titled Douluo in the Marvel family were Doctor Strange and Thanos. The former was dead, so it could only be the latter's orders. However, the other party only challenged and did not kill anyone. To be honest, BB Dong was very puzzled. At this time, the Marvel family took action. Logically speaking, there were only 2 possibilities. First, they attacked the Martial Spirit Palace in various places to avenge Doctor Strange. Second, they stirred up the muddy waters in the world of Soul Masters and then caused chaos to attract the elders of the Martial Spirit Palace so that the Marvel family had a chance to ambush and kill these elders. In summary, these 2 points were to take revenge on the Martial Spirit Palace. Other than that, BB Dong felt that there was no other possibility. As for the rumor of Doctor Strange's challenge, wasn't this funny? He was dead, how could he challenge? Moreover, the Marvel family lost a title Douluo. They did not do anything and just won a challenge. It was impossible for such a meaningless thing to happen. But on the other hand, if the Marvel family wanted to take revenge on the Martial Spirit Palace, killing was better than not killing. After all, the more Soul Masters killed, the more chaotic the world of Soul Masters would be, and the more opportunities they would have for revenge. And yet, Qin Haodong had left after a trivial challenge, just like how Thanos had gone around challenging Douluo. Bibi Dong was confused. However, it was useless for her to be confused. The original plan of the Martial Spirit Palace was completely disrupted because of the appearance of the Marvel family. Now, she had to come up with another feasible plan in a short time. Otherwise, the Martial Spirit Palace's plan might go wrong. Just as Bibi Dong returned to Martial Spirit City, the incident in Longxing City swept across the entire continent in a very short period of time. Countless soul masters and even ordinary people were talking about this Marvel family. The royal families of the two empires also noticed this mysterious power. Now, the Continental Elite Academy tournament had ended, and Martial Spirit City had undergone a huge change. On top of that, there was the Marvel family's declaration of war and the incident in Longxing City. It was as if a large stone had been thrown into a calm lake. The entire world of soul cultivators was thrown into turmoil. At the same time, the name of the Marvel family instantly resounded throughout the continent. It was mysterious and powerful, causing all soul masters and ordinary people to have wild imaginations. In the Shrek Academy, Ning Rongrong happened to be escorted by Dusty Heart. She wanted to meet Lin Feng, Tang San, and the others. But after seeing Oscar and Ma Hongjun, the others left one after another. Regarding this, Ning Rongrong was very sad. She cried in the room in the middle of the forest. No matter how Dusty Heart comforted her, it was useless. Oscar and Ma Hongjun were also at a loss. They didn't know what to say. They were actually very sad. After all, they were good brothers who had lived together for so long. But they had already been sad before, so they were better now. Rong, don't cry. Didn't you guys agree to meet again in 3 years? I believe your third brother and Fongo will come back. Dusty Heart said with some heartache. Yes, Fongo and the others will definitely come back. Oscar nodded. When Fongo and the others left, they specifically told the dean. They will definitely keep their word. Ma Hongjun also said, Woo, 3 years is too long. Take Shi, Xiao Wu, Fonge, and the others are not here for so long. Ning Rongrong looked sad. This, Dusty Heart only felt a headache. At this moment, Flanders ran over with a happy face. Lord Dusty Heart, good news. What good news? Everyone looked over curiously. I just got the news from the royal family. The people of the Marvel family made a big commotion in Longxing City. The Martial Spirit Palace launched a search. After talking for a few minutes, Flinder told him the general situation of the matter. Dean, was it Mr. Destroy who did it? Is there any news about Fonga? Is he okay? Ning Rongrong asked quickly. This should be Mr. Destroy. As for little Fong, he should be by Mr. Destroy's side. Nothing will happen to him. Flanders said. He was not worried about Lin Feng and Tang San. They were both protected by the extremely powerful titled Douluo. Basically, nothing would happen to them. Dusty Heart touched Ning Rongrong's head. Silly girl, that Thanos is stronger than me. The Marvel family is even more mysterious. With his protection, nothing will happen to your Fongo. After saying that, he looked up at Flanders. The Marvel family made a move and caused the Martial Spirit Palace to conduct a large-scale search. It seems that the world of the Soul Masters is really going to change. Dusty Heart was still very happy because what happened today could greatly reduce the pressure on the Heaven Do Empire. The Martial Spirit Palace must first solve the problem of the Marvel family. Otherwise, they could not make any other plans. In this way, the Seven Treasures Glazed sect had more buffer time. They did not need to be on tenterhooks for a short time and had more room to maneuver. At this time, he had to bring the news back to the Seven Treasures Glazed sect. He did not delay too much. After saying goodbye to Flanders, he took Ning Rongrong back. Ma Hongjun and Oscar were also very happy when they heard the news. In their hearts, this was equivalent to Lin Feng shouting to them through the air. It was as if he was saying, "Don't worry, I'm doing very well." Unfortunately, Tang San could not hear this news. At this time, he and Tang Hao had already arrived at their destination, in front of a huge waterfall. Tang Hao sealed his soul power, soul rings, and even martial soul so that he could only use his own strength to train. This kind of cultivation method was very simple, but it was also very hard work. After all, most of a soul master's strength came from their martial soul and soul power. Soul masters with beast martial souls were a little better as their physical foundation was much stronger. But soul masters with tool martial souls were different. Their bodies would be much weaker. However, Tang San was more special. He had a few soul bones, and his soul rings were also very strong. His physical fitness was greater than a top-grade beast martial soul. At this time, even if his soul power and martial soul were sealed, he was still very strong. Tang Hao also knew this, so he added extra weights to Tang San's body to let him achieve the desired training effect. Under such circumstances, Tang San had a very difficult first day. However, he was also very hardworking. His goal was to catch up to Lin Feng, and he was working hard for it. At the same time, Xue Qinghe was cultivating in Heavendo City. He had also heard about the Marvel family, and because of his channels of information, he knew more than the people outside, even more than Bai Dong. Only fighting and not killing people, that was definitely Thanos' behavior. The incident in Longxing City was definitely done by Thanos. Xue Qinghe dared to guarantee it, and after spending so much time together, he finally understood. Thanos specifically looked for people to fight, definitely not just because he liked to fight, but also to improve his combat ability. There might be a part of the reason, but the fundamental purpose should not be this. There was definitely a deeper reason. In fact, Xue Qinghe was also curious about these reasons, but after so long, he still could not figure it out. However, one thing he knew was that Thanos might not be doing this to take revenge on the Martial Spirit Hall, but simply to find someone to fight. If he told this news to Bibi Dong, she might make a completely different decision from what she was doing now. However, Xue Qinghe did not do so. She still wanted to follow Thanos. Although he could not practice Thanos at this time, he had a goal in his heart after talking to Steve last time, and that was to find a way to safely go to Sea God's Island. It would be extremely difficult for him to find a way to go to Sea God's Island on the mainland. However, Xue Qinghe would not give up. He would strive to find it within 3 years. This way, when Lin Feng returned 3 years later, he would have a bargaining chip in his hand. Right, this 3-year deadline was something he learned from Oscar and Ma Hongjun when he visited the Shrek Academy the day before yesterday. After all, Xue Qinghe's previous actions were very friendly in the eyes of Ma Hongjun and the others. Speaking of which, Xue Qinghe could be regarded as one of their friends, so they told him about the 3 years. Just as the whole mainland was talking about the Longxing City incident, Lin Feng continued to walk south. He passed by several cities on the way, but he did not stop and continued to walk. Finally, at noon the next day, he stopped in a city called Red Maple. This place was more than 400 kilometers away from Martial Spirit City. Lin Feng walked and stopped along the way. In the end, he saw that the scenery here was better and there were red maple trees everywhere, so he chose this place. Next, the situation was the same as in Longxing City. Lin Feng spent a few days here to explore the situation of the forces. During this time, he could see that many people in the city were discussing Longxing City, but most of these people were watching a show. After all, Longxing City was too far away from here. They never thought that the Marvel family would come to their place. However, Lin Feng really came. Today, Lin Feng had a clear understanding of the situation in Red Maple City. The overall strength was not as strong as Longxing City. There were only 18 soul sages and 6 soul Douluo. However, in a valley near the city, Lin Feng sensed a fragment of the 1,000-trick ruler there. After searching carefully, he found a hidden force. He found a titled Douluo inside. Furthermore, this titled Douluo possessed rank 96 soul power. He wasn't weak. This was an unexpected surprise, but Lin Feng also expected this situation. The Douluo continent was not small. Lin Feng remembered that Poseidon said in the original work that as long as he broke through to the titled Douluo, he would have a lifespan of about 300 years. After that, every increase in soul power level would increase his lifespan by 100 years. And a peak rank 99 Douluo could even live for more than 1,000 years. In such a long time, it was impossible for the titled Douluo continent to only accumulate so many titled Douluo. There should be many strong people hidden in the dark. And these hidden titled Douluo should be a very powerful group. Just like the consecrators of the martial spirit hall, they pursued a higher level in their eyes, so they usually cultivated in seclusion and did not care about the outside world. The one he found in this valley was the kind that was hidden. Fighting with this kind of soul master would definitely give him a lot of experience points. Today, Lin Feng had grasped the situation of the soul masters in Red Maple City. He grasped the opportunity and did not hesitate. Just like in Longxing City, he started farming. His doppelganger went to deal with those soul, Douluo, and soul sages. In half an hour, he challenged all of them. Then, Lin Feng summoned his doppelganger and rushed to the valley with him to fight the titled Douluo, who was at rank 96. This fellow looked young, about 30 years old. However, Lin Feng knew that titled Douluo soul masters could use their soul power to maintain their appearance. They could even rejuvenate their youthful looks. What you saw on the surface could not be taken seriously. Judging by his looks, this guy was at least 300 years old. There was no proof. It was just Lin Feng's feeling. His martial soul was a very special vine that was shaped like a long whip. It should be a mutated martial soul that could confine space. I am Ming Hong. I have been cultivating here for many years. You two young people are not virtuous. How dare you deceive me? You sneak attacked me. I am a rank 96 soul master. Is this okay? This is not okay. Ming Hong fought with Lin Feng and said, I advise you. You two young people should take care of yourselves. Don't fight in my valley. Ming Hong's martial soul was very powerful and could restrain some of Lin Feng's soul skills. Even if his original body and doppelganger attacked together, they could only fight to a draw. Moreover, this guy was very experienced in fighting. Lin Feng's attacks were easily resolved by him. In his previous life, he had mastered all of the traditional kung fu techniques, such as receiving, changing, and releasing. Ninth soul skill. Pinecone flick lightning, 5 consecutive whips. Ming Hong suddenly shouted. His martial soul suddenly flashed with lightning. In an instant, he threw out 5 whips, knocking Lin Feng's original body and doppelganger to the ground. However, Lin Feng's recovery ability was very strong. He stood up quickly, very fast. He came up and kicked Ming Hong with his left leg. His doppelganger also followed up with a right whip kick. However, Ming Hong's strength was very terrifying. He blocked all of them. Lin Feng took advantage of the moment when his opponent was defending and did not have time to change his move. He immediately threw a left jab. Bang! Ming Hong was careless. He did not dodge and took the punch. With a snap, his nose was broken